devil fruits in Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26, SHIELD. Laboratory. Didn't we agree to wait at school? What does this mean? When Gwen's figure completely disappeared from his sight, Roger thought for a few seconds and then made a decision. Follow up and take a look. After making up his mind, he parked the car on the side of the road and came to a nearby alley. After confirming that there were no pedestrians around, thousands of white silk threads emerged from his body. Under his control, these silk threads quickly covered his body, forming a close-fitting pure white battlesuit. In just a few seconds, he changed from a handsome young man with clear eyebrows to a Spider-Man who seemed to be wearing a pure white uniform. Of course, he did not make the silk battlesuit he made too tight. Using silk threads to make a battlesuit for himself was an idea he got after making weapons with silk threads. Since he can make all kinds of melee weapons with silk threads, it is not difficult to make a battlesuit. And compared with wearing a Spider-Man hood to hide his identity, this kind of silk battlesuit has another advantage. That is, the silk battlesuit has excellent defensive capabilities. In any case, the silk threads that make up the battlesuit are special silk threads made by the thread fruit. Compared with common fabrics, these threads are much stronger. After moving his body, he shot the threads toward the building next to him and easily reached the roof. Looking at the direction where Gwen left, he did not hesitate and swung between the buildings imitating Spider-Man. It must be said that in New York City, where the traffic environment is extremely bad, this Tarzan-like way of moving is extremely effective. As long as the physical condition can keep up, this way of moving is even faster than taking the subway. Just a few blocks ahead, he heard the sound of sirens coming from the street. The direction is right. Looking at the direction of the police car, Roger knew that he was not wrong. When he swung between the buildings like Spider-Man, the pedestrians and police on the street soon found his trace. Then, they exclaimed and took out their mobile phones. Look, Spider-Man. Although the silk battlesuit on his body is nothing like Spider-Man's uniform, it does not affect other people's thinking that he is Spider-Man. After all, there are only two people in New York who can move forward in this swing-like way. Spider-Woman just passed away not long ago, so the one who appeared now can only be Spider-Man. As for why his uniform is not the typical red and blue uniform, people naturally came to the conclusion. Spider-Man, change into a new uniform. People will only believe the truth they are willing to believe, especially the truth they come up with after thinking. Roger did not intend to correct these pedestrians. He heard pedestrians on the road shouting Spider-Man at him, but he did not intend to respond to them. After moving forward non-stop for a while in these high-rise buildings, he finally saw Gwen's figure. At this time, Gwen was standing on the roof of a building, and then like a diver, he opened his arms and jumped down. And downstairs in the building was Professor Lizard, who was wearing a tattered white coat and carrying a huge black travel bag. What exactly does this guy want to do? Roger thought that, after being arrested by himself and the Osborn group, Professor Lizard would be more or less quiet for a while. But it turned out that he thought too much. Just a few days later, Professor Lizard broke out again and appeared openly in the city. Just as he was thinking about what Professor Lizard was thinking, Gwen, who jumped from the roof of the building, had come to the vicinity of Professor Lizard by swinging on the spider silk. Then, with an extremely standard pendulum posture, he kicked Professor Lizard's back hard, kicking him out. It was not until Professor Lizard fell to the street that Roger swung on the silk thread to the roof of a nearby building. Professor Lizard, who was kicked away, immediately stood up and looked back at Gwen, who had already landed. Then, he did something that was shocking. Without any hesitation, Professor Lizard threw away the car in front of him and ran away without looking back. Looking at Professor Lizard, who was fleeing crazily, Roger's doubts became more and more. Although he had only met Professor Lizard twice, he knew that Professor Lizard was definitely not a cowardly person. Unless he sensed a huge danger, he would never run away without doing anything. Professor Lizard fled frantically, and Gwen did not hesitate at all, and immediately chased after him. Roger, who was standing on the roof of a nearby building at this time, did not follow him immediately, but curiously took a look at the floor where Professor Lizard had just jumped out. It was the 5th floor of the building. Looking inside along the broken glass exterior wall, Roger saw a familiar logo. It was a round flying eagle logo. SHIELD. This is the logo of SHIELD. After seeing the SHIELD logo, Roger instantly understood why Professor Lizard ran away frantically without looking back. This guy actually robbed SHIELD's laboratory. Although the laboratory in the building is not a particularly confidential laboratory, it is still a SHIELD laboratory anyway. Only Professor Lizard, whose mind was affected by the lizard gene drug, could rob SHIELD's laboratory in broad daylight. At the same time, Roger became more and more curious about what Professor Lizard's purpose was. Taking such a big risk to rob SHIELD's laboratory, Professor Lizard's plot must be very big. Just when Roger was about to catch up with Professor Lizard to find out, several black subs with the SHIELD logo quickly arrived downstairs of the building. Then, a man with a perky, but that was familiar to all Americans, walked out of the car. Captain America, Steve Rogers. What happened today? Is it the day of the big fight? Spider-Woman, Professor Lizard, Captain America. If Spider-Man also came to get involved, today would be really lively. After complaining in his heart, Roger shot out the silk thread and chased after Professor Lizard. It must be said that when Professor Lizard started to run for his life, his speed was not slower than Gwen and Roger, who were swinging between the buildings. After finding that he couldn't get rid of Spider-Woman, who was chasing him closely, Professor Lizard lifted the manhole cover of the sewer and got in like a real lizard. When Professor Lizard got into the sewer, Gwen didn't hesitate at all and fell into the sewer as accurately as a golf ball. Roger, who was not far behind Gwen, witnessed this scene, hesitated for 2 or 3 seconds, and then followed into the sewer. I hate sewers. P.S. Thank you Alex Bingfeng for the reward. Thank you for your support. Today is the day for the trial promotion of the novel. Please collect monthly votes, recommendation votes, comments. The results of the trial promotion directly determine the subsequent recommendations. If you think this novel is interesting, you might as well give The Apprentice some small support. The Apprentice would like to thank everyone in advance. Chapter 27 Black Widow. Although he was somewhat reluctant, Roger could only follow him into the sewer. The sewers that spread throughout New York were, to some extent, no different from a super large maze with many exits. Before he mastered the observation haki, if he did not follow him in, it would basically mean that he would completely lose the trace of Professor Lizard. And he didn't know if it was his illusion, but after seeing Gwen attack Professor Lizard, he always felt that Gwen's current mentality was not very calm. It was an angry mentality similar to blood revenge. Since Gwen became Spider-Woman, news reports about her rarely showed that she violently hurt criminals. In fact, not only Gwen rarely hurt criminals, but Spider-Man Peter Parker also did the same. In this regard, they were similar to Batman, who made a no-killing oath. But when Gwen just attacked Professor Lizard, Roger saw something called murderous intent. After entering the sewer, the Spider-Man style of fast travel lost its effect. However, this would not have any impact on Roger's tracking. Professor Lizard is a superstar in the lizard world. He has a large number of crazy fans in the dark and humid sewers. As long as you follow these crazy fans of Professor Lizard, you will not be afraid of following Professor Lizard. Just when Roger and Gwen were tracking Professor Lizard in the sewers, Captain America, holding his iconic shield, came to the laboratory on the 5th floor of the building and listened to the report of the shield agent. What was stolen was an instrument specially used for gene sequencing and positioning. In addition to this instrument, there is also a hard drive that stores human enhancement experiment data. Although Professor Lizard caused a lot of noise, he didn't steal much. After hearing the words human enhancement experiment, Captain Rogers' face became a little ugly. He knew that SHIELD had never given up studying the super serum he had injected, but he didn't expect that SHIELD would actually conduct related research directly in New York. And it was in this ordinary laboratory whose security level didn't seem to be very high. The head of the laboratory had discussed the relevant content of the human enhancement field with Dr. Connors before. Perhaps he knew the location of the laboratory and the content of the research at that time. For others, the fact that Professor Lizard was Dr. Connors was a secret that had not yet been discovered. But for SHIELD, it was not difficult to investigate this. To be precise, S.H.I.E.L.D. knew this not long after Professor Lizard appeared. At the beginning, S.H.I.E.L.D. did have the idea of capturing Professor Lizard. But after knowing that the genetic drug used by Professor Lizard was only a semi-finished product and had strong side effects, they gave up this idea. In recent months, Professor Lizard has indeed caused a lot of sensational events in New York. But for S.H.I.E.L.D., which is responsible for protecting world peace, Professor Lizard's status is not enough. Therefore, S.H.I.E.L.D. handed the matter of capturing Professor Lizard to Spider-Man and the New York Police Department. After all, from the perspective of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s threat assessment criteria, the harm of Professor Lizard is not much different from that of a gangster. This is similar to the CIA's lack of interest in handling serial killer cases. However, S.H.I.E.L.D. would never have thought that they did not go to trouble Professor Lizard, but Professor Lizard took the initiative to find them. This was no different from a slap in the face for S.H.I.E.L.D. So, after receiving the news that Professor Lizard attacked the laboratory, S.H.I.E.L.D. directly sent Captain America over, who is responsible for tracking Dr. Connors now. Captain America Rogers asked the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent in front of him. It's Agent Romanov. After advancing in the sewer for a while relying on the road signs formed by Professor Lizard's brain-dead fans, Roger finally saw the exit. It was an exit that was dug out temporarily. Among the broken steel bars, there were still some rags of white coats hanging. It is obvious that this exit was dug out by Professor Lizard. Just as Roger came out of the sewer with extremely poor air quality, gunshots came from a distance. Who is this? Gwen has no habit of using firearms, so the person shooting now cannot be Gwen. Rushing to the place where the gunshots came from, Roger saw a female S.H.I.E.L.D. agent with a proud figure and charming appearance. Black Widow. Why is she here? Roger recognized this female S.H.I.E.L.D. agent the first time he saw her. At the same time, he saw Gwen, who was fighting with Professor Lizard. Although Gwen's strength was not as good as Professor Lizard, she was now as flexible as a real spider. While dodging Professor Lizard's attacks, she continued to attack Professor Lizard. Neither Professor Lizard nor Gwen had received formal close combat training. Although they were fighting fiercely now, they were only fighting with their physical fitness far superior to that of normal people. While Roger was watching Professor Lizard fighting Gwen, Black Widow was also looking at him. Like the pedestrians on the street, Black Widow Natasha also mistook Roger for Spider-Man. To be precise, she mistook him for Spider-Man in a new uniform. Roger ignored the Black Widow Natasha's scrutiny. He frowned and observed the battle between Gwen and Professor Lizard for a few seconds before he made his move. He raised his right hand and shot out silk threads toward the position of Professor Lizard. From the perspective of attack, he seemed to be attacking Professor Lizard. But when these silk threads came near Professor Lizard, they flew towards Gwen, as if they suddenly had life. Although Gwen's spider sense was not as good as Spider-Man Peter Parker, she had spider sense after all. If he shot the silk threads directly at her, Roger was 100% sure that he would miss. So he first targeted Professor Lizard, and at the last moment, let the silk threads fly to the real target, Gwen. At the moment the silk threads turned, Gwen's spider sense gave a warning. But it was too late. At this distance, even if Gwen was far more sensitive than normal people, Roger was confident that the silk threads would hit Gwen. Although Gwen dodged at the first time, the white silk threads still entangled her body. Then, with the help of his own arm strength and the strength of the retracted silk thread, Roger pulled Gwen in front of him. As soon as he pulled Gwen in front of him, the silk thread battlesuit on his body surged out, binding Gwen tightly like a mummy. P.S. Continue to ask for collection, recommendation votes, monthly votes, comments. These data are really important to The Apprentice, please. Chapter 28. I want to be a human. No one present thought that Roger's first target of attack would be Gwen. Especially Professor Lizard, who looked at this strange white Spider-Man with a puzzled look. For some reason, when he saw this white Spider-Man, he inexplicably thought of the young man who blackmailed his deposit. Could it really be him? Just as Professor Lizard was thinking about whether this white Spider-Man was Roger, Roger raised his right hand and shot a silk thread at a nearby lamppost. Then, Gwen, who was tied up like a mummy, was hung on the lamppost. Although Gwen tried her best to break free from the white silk threads on her body, the toughness of these white silk threads far exceeded her imagination and always bound her body tightly. Roger didn't mind Gwen's revenge on Professor Lizard. If he was Gwen, he would never let Professor Lizard go. However, before Gwen took revenge on Professor Lizard, he still had some things to ask Professor Lizard. After temporarily sealing Gwen's ability to move, Roger walked towards the vigilant Black Widow Natasha. After Roger shot out the silk thread and tied up Gwen like a mummy, Natasha the Black Widow had already concluded that the guy in front of her who looked like the white Spider-Man was definitely not Spider-Man himself. Although S.H.I.E.L.D. did not recruit Spider-Man, it did not forget to investigate Spider-Man. Although S.H.I.E.L.D. has not figured out Spider-Man's true identity, let alone the source of his abilities, there is one thing S.H.I.E.L.D. can confirm, that is, the spider silk used by Spider-Man is not a product of physical mutation, but a product of technology. So after seeing Roger just controlling the silk thread to turn and pouring out of his body like magic, Natasha the Black Widow reacted immediately. Looking at Roger getting closer and closer to her, Natasha the Black Widow did not hesitate at all and directly raised the pistol in her hand and pointed the gun at Roger. "Stop. If you come over again, I will shoot," Black Widow warned Roger. But Roger seemed to have not heard her warning at all and walked towards her at an unslowed speed. When Roger came to a place only about 10 meters away from him, Black Widow Natasha opened fire. Bang, bang, bang. Black Widow Natasha fired 3 shots without any hesitation. Roger did not dodge. At the moment when Black Widow fired, the silk battle suit on his body expanded slightly. Although this was his first time using the silk battle suit in battle, he had absolute confidence in the defensive performance of the battle suit. This is a battle suit woven with the silk threads of the thread fruit. If it can't even block a pistol bullet, then the thread fruit would be too embarrassing for the devil fruit. Blocking bullets is definitely not a problem for the silk battlesuit. The only thing to pay attention to is how to deal with the impact of the bullet. The silk threads of the thread fruit are indeed magical, but these threads are not vibranium after all, and they do not have the effect of absorbing kinetic energy. In order to deal with the impact of the bullet, Roger made the battlesuit expand by a few centimeters and let the battlesuit slightly separate from his body. As long as the battlesuit is not in contact with his body, the impact force cannot be transmitted to him through the battlesuit. The bullets flew at high speed and hit the silk battlesuit, but were blocked by the battlesuit that expanded by several centimeters. Just when Black Widow was about to continue shooting at Roger, Roger raised his right hand and controlled the battlesuit to shoot out silk threads. The white silk threads instantly came in front of Black Widow and wrapped around her waist. Then, the whole person was pulled towards Roger. As soon as Black Widow was pulled in front of him, Roger's right fist hit her lower abdomen heavily. At some times, he was a good man who was sympathetic to women. But now, it was obviously not the time to be a gentleman. After hitting Black Widow's lower abdomen, he snatched the pistol from Black Widow's hand. Then when Black Widow tried to activate the special bracelet on her arm called Widow Sting, Roger hit her on the back of the neck with a knife, knocking her unconscious. Although Black Widow has undergone genetic modification, her physical fitness is far superior to that of normal humans. But no matter how she is modified, she is still flesh and blood. After knocking out Black Widow, Roger did to Gwen what he had just done to her, hanging her on another lamppost. After doing this, he walked towards Professor Lizard. When he was fighting with Black Widow Natasha, Professor Lizard did not choose to leave, but stood there watching their fight. If Professor Lizard was just a little suspicious when Roger attacked Gwen, then after seeing Roger fighting with Black Widow, he was sure that this guy who looked like White Spider-Man was the guy who blackmailed his deposit. Since they were all acquaintances, he certainly gave up the idea of leaving. "What do you want to see me for?" When Roger came in front of him, Professor Lizard took the initiative to ask. "Nothing, just a little curious about what you are going to do. The laboratory you robbed is from SHIELD. Don't tell me you don't know what this means." Roger did not remove the silk battlesuit on his body. After all, Gwen was still watching. He didn't plan to reveal his identity for the time being. "Of course I know that's the S.H.I.E.L.D. lab. My experiment has reached a critical stage. Only that lab and the Osborn group have the equipment I need," Professor Lizard explained quickly. "Is it the experiment of the lizard gene potion?" "No. It's the potion for restoration." "Restoration potion?" Looking at Professor Lizard in front of him, Roger frowned. "During the time when I became a monster, I figured it out. I still want to be a human being, not the lizard monster rhyme now. As a human, although I don't have a right arm, it's better than this monster. So that's it. Roger thought that Professor Lizard was going to continue researching the lizard gene potion, but he didn't expect that Professor Lizard just wanted to become a normal human being again. Some people shouted that they would not be human beings anymore, while others were trying to turn back into humans. After a few seconds of silence, Roger spoke again. Then I wish you success. By the way, I just need your help with something. Do you mind? What is it? Let her beat you up. Don't worry, it's just a beating. It shouldn't cause you too much harm. Roger pointed at Gwen, who was hanging on the lamppost, and said with a smile. Professor Lizard never thought that Roger's so-called help would actually let him be beaten up, and by the so-called Spider-Woman. P.S. Keep asking for asterisk asterisk asterisk. Chapter 29 Beating. Let me get beaten up, and said it won't hurt me too much. Listen, is this human talk? Professor Lizard thought Roger was a good person just now, and was still imagining that he might be friends with him after he turned back into a human. But now, he found that he thought too much. Who is she to you? After a few seconds of silence, Professor Lizard asked. She should be considered a friend. You hurt her family before. If you don't want to be hunted by her all day, you'd better agree to my proposal. Let her beat you up to vent your anger, and you won't have to worry so much in the future. Or you can choose to let me beat you up, but if I do it, I won't be so gentle. With Professor Lizard's recovery ability, being beaten up by Gwen is nothing. And Roger doesn't think Gwen will really kill Professor Lizard. If his guess is correct, Gwen now just wants to vent her anger about Boss Joe's injury. If the person who said this to him now is not Roger, Professor Lizard will definitely let the guy who said this know what the anger of a lizard is. Professor Lizard had fought with Roger before, and he knew what kind of strength Roger had. And judging from the current situation, if he didn't agree, Roger would attack him next. After thinking over and over for more than 10 seconds, Professor Lizard finally agreed to Roger's proposal. It's just a beating. I don't believe that this Spider-Woman can kill me. Keep this for me first. After saying that, Professor Lizard handed the travel bag he was carrying to Roger. Being beaten by Spider-Woman, he could just endure it. But if the equipment in the bag was damaged, he would really lose. No problem. After taking the black travel bag handed over by Professor Lizard, Roger removed all the silk threads on Gwen. Then, he shot silk threads towards the building next to him, and came to the top of the building with the travel bag on his back. Although Gwen didn't know what Roger and Professor Lizard talked about, after seeing Professor Lizard handing the travel bag to Roger, she naturally regarded Roger as Professor Lizard's accomplice. Just as she was thinking about whether to leave first and come back to catch Professor Lizard next time, Professor Lizard took the initiative to run towards her. Professor Lizard's charge instantly gave up her plan to leave. The scene of Boss Joe lying in the ward appeared in her mind. The next second, she raised her right hand and fired spider silk at Professor Lizard. In the blink of an eye, Gwen was entangled with Professor Lizard. However, Gwen soon realized that something was wrong. Professor Lizard seemed to attack her fiercely, but these attacks of Professor Lizard did not pose any threat to her. And she also found that Professor Lizard's strength, speed, and reaction were far inferior to what they were before. What's going on? Although Gwen didn't know why Professor Lizard suddenly became like this, she didn't hesitate to attack. Soon, the fight turned into a one-sided beating. Watching Gwen constantly beating Professor Lizard, Roger, who was sitting on the roof watching the fight, felt that he seemed to have underestimated Gwen's anger. According to Gwen's current fighting style, Professor Lizard's final fate will definitely not be good, and he may even be seriously injured. At the beginning, Professor Lizard deliberately restrained some of his strength so that Gwen could vent her anger better. But now, he began to regret agreeing to Roger's proposal. This woman, hitting people is really painful. Just when Professor Lizard was about to resist seriously, he saw Roger sitting on the roof and shaking his head at him. Damn it. Professor Lizard cursed in his heart and then continued to be a human sandbag to bear Gwen's anger. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 5 minutes. After beating Professor Lizard like a storm for 5 minutes, Gwen's attack finally slowed down gradually. If at the beginning, she was just a little surprised why Professor Lizard was so much weaker than at the beginning, now, she can be sure that Professor Lizard deliberately gave up resistance and let her beat him. After thinking of this, she turned her head and glanced at Roger sitting on the roof. Is this all his arrangement? After the beating just now, Gwen's anger was vented for the most part. Although she was angry that Professor Lizard had injured Boss Joe, she was still a 19-year-old girl anyway. She couldn't kill anyone now. Killing seemed simple. A pistol, a dagger, or even a pen could be a murder weapon. But not everyone has the courage to kill. Especially people with higher education and better moral character can't kill people with their own hands. After grabbing Professor Lizard's tail and throwing him out, Gwen stopped attacking Professor Lizard. Although she didn't know why Professor Lizard was willing to be beaten by herself, she knew one thing very well. That is, if she really wanted to catch Professor Lizard to the police station or kill Professor Lizard, the guy sitting on the roof would never stand idly by, and Professor Lizard would definitely resist most fiercely. After figuring this out, she gave up beating Professor Lizard. This was a play specifically for her to vent her anger. The guy sitting on the rooftop was the planner, and she and Professor Lizard were the actors in the play. What a disgusting guy. After finishing beating Professor Lizard, Gwen had no intention of staying here any longer. After looking at Roger sitting on the rooftop with dissatisfaction, she shot out Spider Silk and left quickly. When Gwen's figure completely disappeared at the corner between the buildings, Roger came to Professor Lizard and handed the black travel bag back to Professor Lizard. "Thank you for your hard work." Although the process was a little more brutal than he imagined, the result was still very satisfactory. Gwen vented her anger about Boss Joe's injury on Professor Lizard, and Professor Lizard was not beaten to death by Gwen. As the planner of all this, Roger was very satisfied with the result. "This kind of thing happened once. It's enough. I don't want it to happen again." Professor Lizard moved his painful body, put on the travel bag, and wanted to leave here immediately. However, as soon as he took the first step, a round shield flew towards him at a high speed like a dart. Before Professor Lizard could react, Roger took the lead. He stretched out his right hand quickly and grabbed the powerful shield. With the help of his battle suit and his own strength, he forcibly grabbed the shield. "You go first, I'll handle this." Roger looked at Captain America not far away and said to Professor Lizard without turning his head. Professor Lizard helped him, so he certainly didn't mind helping Professor Lizard deal with the trouble. Okay. Professor Lizard ran away without any hesitation. Chapter 30 An Unexpected Choice. Grabbing the shield thrown by Captain America with one hand, in Roger's memory, the Winter Soldier Buggy, who is known as the first male model of Hydra, has also done it. However, unlike the Winter Soldier who has undergone biochemical transformation and has a mechanical left arm, Roger can catch the shield thrown by Captain America with one hand, relying not on his physical strength, but on the strength of the silken battle suit. After a few days of sudden increase in appetite and physical adaptation, he can basically be sure that his body has begun to show signs of piratization. The body is pirated, which is a special term in the training class of crossing the world of pirates. It means that, after undergoing body transformation, the physical fitness will gradually improve to the standard of the world of pirates. However, this improvement will not be officially started until the crossing is completed. Although the world of pirates looks quite normal, the humans and creatures in the world of pirates have unreasonable strong bodies. This can be seen from the height of humans in the world of pirates and the huge size of sea kings. Take the string fruit that Roger has now, for example. The eater of the string fruit, Doflamingo, is 3.05 meters tall. Not to mention Whitebird, who is 6.66 meters tall, and Big Mom Charlotte Lin, who is 8.88 meters tall. As for the giants, who are at least 12 meters tall when they grow up, let alone. In such a world, where giants can be seen basically everywhere, guys with poor physical fitness don't even have the qualifications to go to sea. In order to prevent the Travises from becoming a weak chicken with little strength, after arriving in the pirate world, each Traviser has undergone a certain body transformation before departure, so that their bodies can gradually grow to the level that meets the standards of the pirate world after crossing. As the only full score graduate of the 21,308th Pirate World Crossing training class, Roger has of course also undergone body transformation. It's just that, because he crossed to the wrong destination, he has no way to determine whether the effect of the body transformation he has undergone is still there. After all, the world he referred to when transforming his body was the pirate world, not the Marvel world. After the battle with the Hand Ninja last night, he was 100% sure that the effect of the transformation he had received was still there. The only thing he couldn't be sure of now was whether the body transformation originally carried out to adapt to the power rules of the pirate world would have any sequely in the possibility of losing control after coming to the Marvel world. As of now, apart from the sudden increase in appetite, he has not found any other problems for the time being. After seeing Roger casually catch the shield he threw out, Captain America Rogers showed a solemn look. He knew very well how much power the shield he threw out had, so after seeing Roger catch his shield with one hand, he knew that Roger's power would not be lower than his own. If Roger was only wearing an ordinary battle suit now, then Captain America Rogers' speculation could not be said to be wrong. But the problem is that he is now wearing a silk battle suit made by the Tremor Fruit. He can catch Captain America's shield so easily, and it is more of a use of the power of the battle suit. When Captain America Rogers looked at Roger, who was dressed like the white Spider-Man, with a vigilant look, Roger picked up the vibranium shield in his hand and looked at it carefully. There was no magnetic recovery device installed, nor was there a positioning device. In this case, Roger quickly made a decision. When the shield's action vehicles came one after another and surrounded him, he put the shield on his back and controlled the silk thread to fix the shield on his back. After seeing Roger put a shield on his back, Captain America Rogers had a bad premonition. The next second, his premonition came true. Under the watchful eyes of Captain America Rogers and other shield agents, Roger shot silk threads towards the nearby buildings. Damn. No one expected that, after catching Captain America Rogers' shield, Roger would choose to retreat directly. His unexpected move not only completely surprised Captain America Rogers, but also shocked the shield agents who came. In a few seconds, Rogers' figure disappeared between the buildings. Captain Rogers had experienced hundreds of battles, if not 1,000. But he had never encountered such an unreasonable enemy as Roger. Taking his shield and running away, is this what a human would do? Although Roger's figure had completely disappeared in the building, Captain Rogers obviously would not give up his shield so easily. He immediately came to a shield action vehicle and drove the car to chase it. After seeing Captain Rogers taking the lead, the other shield agents quickly divided into two teams. One team followed Captain Rogers to chase, and the other team went to rescue Natasha, the Black Widow, who was hanging on the lamppost. Roger, who was moving quickly between the buildings, was not worried that he would be caught up by Captain Rogers. This swinging way of moving invented by Spider-Man is very useful in New York City, which is densely populated with high-rise buildings. As long as he left a little distance, he could completely get rid of all the pursuers. Unless S.H.I.E.L.D. can install surveillance cameras in all buildings in New York and leave no blind spots, this swing-like way of moving forward is unsolvable. After swinging between buildings for more than 20 minutes, Roger returned to the alleyway he left. After removing the silk battle suit on his body and wrapping the shield into a square with silk threads, he took the shield back to the Porsche 911 parked on the side of the road. After putting the vibranium shield, which no longer looked like a shield, into the trunk at the front of the car, he drove the car to Empire State University, where Gwen was studying. Although some minor incidents occurred, what should be done still had to be done. And he also wanted to see how Gwen, who had vented her anger, was doing now. After arriving at the destination in much longer than expected time, he took out his mobile phone and called Gwen. Since the original owner of the identity moved out of Mr. Joe's house, he has never called Gwen again. Gwen did call the original owner of the current identity, but the arrogant original owner of the identity did not answer. I'm at the entrance of your school now, are you free now? Because Boss Joe had called Gwen in advance, Roger didn't bother to explain why he came. There is an Italian coffee shop at the entrance of the school, just wait for me there. After saying that, Gwen hung up the phone. 10 minutes later, Gwen appeared in the coffee shop wearing jeans and a tight top, and came straight to Roger. Vanilla Paradise coffee, you shouldn't have changed your flavor yet. Roger pointed to the coffee he had ordered. Although he didn't know Gwen very well, the original owner of his identity provided him with a lot of information about Gwen. For example, Gwen's favorite coffee was this Vanilla Paradise coffee. Chapter 31 Captain America's Troubles. Looking at the Vanilla Paradise coffee on the table, Gwen's face showed a smile. She didn't expect that after so long. Roger still remembered what her favorite coffee was. This is a good start. After seeing the smile on Gwen's face, Roger knew that the possibility of his identity being exposed this time would not be very high. Since crossing into this world, his biggest worry is that his identity will be seen through. Although there are many extraordinary humans in the world now, such as Spider-Man and Professor Lizard, but crossing over and replacing someone else's identity is still a bit too bizarre. According to Roger's speculation, if he can hide his current identity from his ex-girlfriend, then he doesn't have to worry about his identity as a crosser being seen through by others. Of course, big guys like the Supreme Sorcerer Ancient One are exceptions. Relying on the memories provided by the original owner of the identity, Roger and Gwen's communication is quite pleasant. Although they all have their own secrets, it has to be said that chatting with a young and beautiful beauty is still a very pleasant thing. Although Gwen's spider sense still gave an early warning, compared with the last time they met in the hospital, the early warning given by the spider sense was so low that it could be ignored. Although the spider sense is magical, it is not as terrifying as reading minds or predicting the future. While Roger and Gwen were having a pleasant chat with each other, Captain America Rogers in the New York branch of S.H.I.E.L.D. was not happy at all. The shield was lost. The vibranium shield that accompanied him through many battles and became his representative weapon was lost. No, strictly speaking, it was stolen by someone else. It was stolen by the mysterious guy who looked like the White Spider-Man. Is there any progress from the intelligence department? Captain America Rogers, who was sitting in the command hall, sighed helplessly and asked the Black Widow Natasha, who had just entered the command hall without looking back. No. That guy is as hard to lock as Spider-Man. The Black Widow Natasha's face was not very good at this time. But this is also normal. As a top agent, she was knocked unconscious by a guy who appeared out of nowhere and hung on the lamppost like a cocoon. This experience is unique in Black Widow's entire career as an agent. What's more embarrassing is that when the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents rescued her from the lamppost, she still couldn't get out of the damn cocoon. The S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who rescued her tried many methods, but couldn't get rid of the damn cocoon. In the end, these cocoons disappeared automatically, and she finally regained her freedom. And because the cocoons disappeared automatically, S.H.I.E.L.D. has not figured out what those silk threads are until now. The only thing they can be sure of is that these silk threads are extremely tough, and ordinary knives and daggers can't cut these silk threads at all. Is there a possibility that the white guy is the third Spider-Man? It's just that he has experienced a different mutation from the previous two, so he has the ability to freely launch silk threads, just like a real spider. Black Widow Natasha expressed her guess. It's possible, but we don't have enough information to make an accurate judgment. Perhaps we can start with Dr. Connors. Judging from his appearance, he should be familiar with Dr. Connors. Captain America Rogers frowned and thought for a while, then said slowly, in fact, he didn't really care whether Roger was the third Spider-Man. His mind was full of his shield. Not to mention the ability of the shield, just the fact that the shield had been with him for so long and had experienced so many battles with him, he would never give up the shield easily. Nick Fury already knew that the shield was stolen. He suggested that we go find Tony Stark, saying that Tony Stark might be able to locate the shield. Looking at Captain America Rogers with a frown on his face, Black Widow Natasha told Nick Fury's suggestion. Go find Tony Stark. Captain America Rogers was no stranger to Tony, especially after knowing that Tony was Howard's only son. He had been paying attention to Tony for a while, but he was not particularly able to accept Tony's playboy style. In his opinion, Tony, who had better talents than Howard, should not waste his energy on a life of luxury and decadence, but should use his talents to help America, like Howard, and make America stronger. Of course, it's okay to pursue luxurious life like Howard occasionally. After all, Howard was also a famous entrepreneur at the time. However, Tony's limit was obviously beyond Howard. I don't want to see him. Please help me go there. After saying that, Captain America Rogers left the command hall, Italian cafe near the gate of Empire State University. After heart-to-heart with Gwen in the cafe for more than half an hour, Roger wanted to strike while the iron was hot and invite Gwen to lunch to eliminate all her doubts at once. But Gwen refused him. When they parted, Roger told Gwen the location of his current new residence, and by the way, he revealed that he had recently won a large prize abroad, and his financial conditions had improved a lot. Roger didn't just make up the story of winning the lottery. Some of his legal income, that was laundered through the Wealth Freedom website, was indeed paid in the name of foreign lottery prizes. And the time traveler training he received told him that the best way to quickly gain the trust of the target is to appropriately confess some irrelevant content that will not reveal the truth of the time travel. Lies mixed with some truth are more effective than direct lies. This is a famous saying left by Goebbels, the propaganda minister of an organization that will always 404 when it is typed. When Gwen heard Roger say that he had won the lottery and it was a big prize in a foreign country, she gave him a charming roll of the eyes. It is estimated that at this time, Gwen has begun to suspect that Roger has been targeted by some fraud organizations. However, when she saw Roger's latest Porsche 911, her face changed instantly. Then, she asked Roger righteously, "Have you started selling drugs?" Gwen knew very well how Roger lived after moving out. The last time she went to Roger's small apartment, she confirmed this. So after seeing Roger driving a Porsche 911 that was totally inconsistent with his previous experience, her first reaction was that Roger was running away to sell drugs. The reason why she didn't suspect Roger was smuggling arms was because smuggling arms also requires a lot of capital. "I just said that I won the lottery and this is what I bought with the money from the lottery. I really didn't expect that you would think of me like this. Am I so unreliable in your heart? Hey." At this point, Roger deliberately pretended to be heartbroken and aggrieved. P.S. This is already the third day of the trial recommendation, but the data growth is not so satisfactory. If the trial promotion fails, then it will be difficult to get recommendations in the future. So, I solemnly ask for collections, recommendation tickets, monthly tickets, comments, and comments on this chapter. By the way, some readers have been discussing the protagonist's physique recently, saying that ordinary people's physiques cannot be so good. In the first and second chapters, there are already many contents hinting that the protagonist is not an ordinary person. How could a person who knew that he was going to that world before crossing over, knew what systems he could have, knew that he had peers, knew the rules of crossing, and knew that the system was set up by programmers, be an ordinary person? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 32 Plan. Okay, stop pretending to be wronged. Don't I know who you are? If you were so fragile, you wouldn't have chosen to move out alone. Gwen rolled her eyes at Roger and said disdainfully, "Well, you are the top student in the school. It's not easy to deceive you." Roger shrugged indifferently. After chatting with Gwen for a few more words, he drove back to his new home, Forest Hills Mansion. But before going home, he had a lunch for 7 people at a Chinese restaurant near the mansion. Under the incredible gaze of the waiter, he drove to the underground garage of the mansion and returned home with the shield that could no longer be seen in its original appearance. From the moment he decided to take Captain America's shield, he had already decided how to use it. Although the shield was made of vibranium, he didn't take it seriously. If he wanted vibranium, he would go to Wakanda to get it, instead of choosing to steal Captain America's shield. If nothing unexpected happens, SHIELD should be frantically searching for his whereabouts, trying to arrest him. More importantly, take back Captain America's shield. After turning on the police channel monitoring radio purchased from Taiji, and connecting the radio to the audio system in the training room, he came to the training room. It is still several hours before nightfall. Before nightfall, he plans to continue training the control of the parasitic line and the silk thread battlesuit, and by the way, let these 2 moves be recognized by the system. This is not because he has any obsessive compulsive disorder, but when the moves are recognized by the system, the execution of the moves will become easier, just like becoming an instinct of the body. An afternoon passed quickly. When Roger walked out of the training room with sweat on his head, he turned on the system and took a look at his current combat moves. Just as he expected, there were 2 new moves under the 2 moves of elastic line and 5 color line. The thread fruit, parasitic thread, wrap dozens of thin threads around the target to control the target's body movements, a controlled move. The thread fruit, thread armor, use countless thin threads to weave into armor or battle clothes to enhance one's physical defensibility, an original defensive move. After taking a look at the system's description of the 2 moves, Roger closed the system page with satisfaction and went straight to the bathroom. After taking a hot bath in the bathroom for nearly half an hour, he came to the bedroom wrapped in a bath towel and changed into clean clothes. After doing all this, he put the Captain America shield, which was no longer wrapped with silk threads, into a large backpack and then left the building with the backpack. It is now 8 o'clock in the evening. It has been almost 10 hours since he stole the Captain America shield. It is time to solve the problem of the shield and carry out his next plan. Brooklyn, the abandoned building where Ronald's lair is located. After solving his dinner problem, Roger took a taxi to the vicinity of the building. Looking at the 6th floor, which was still lit, he took his backpack to the roof of the residential building opposite the building. He killed the ninja sent by the Hand to protect Ronald last night, and also let Ronald's gang join the so-called Don Quixote family. After a day of fermentation, if nothing unexpected happens, the Hand should have known the news. As a well-known killer group, the Hand's intelligence network may not be as good as professional organizations like SHIELD, but it is not to the point where it cannot receive any information. Not to mention, the Hand may also have some secret method to perceive members. If he guessed correctly, the Hand would come to Ronald tonight. On the one hand, it was to find out the cause of death of the 6 ninjas, and on the other hand, it was to find out the so-called Don Quixote family. As long as the Hand sent someone tonight, his plan could be said to be half successful. Although he looked like he wanted to subdue Ronald last night, he did not really regard Ronald as his subordinate. He asked Ronald's gang to become a peripheral force of the Don Quixote family just to confuse Ronald. He did have the intention of forming his own power, but he would not want someone like Ronald. Compared with Ronald, he prefers Zyomar, who has a little chivalry. Of course, skin color is also a very important reason. Ronald is not only a gangster boss, but also a black man, and he hates black people the most. After sitting on the roof of the residential building and playing the Goblin game for more than half an hour, he waited for the protagonist of the night. There were more than a dozen ninjas who did not follow the usual path. Wearing a black tight ninja suit, carrying various melee weapons including samurai swords. Roger counted them and found that there were about 15 ninjas jumping around in the buildings and streets below. After arriving downstairs of Ronald's lair, the group of ninjas took out their weapons one after another and then rushed into the building under the cover of night. Not long after the group of ninjas entered the building, intermittent gunshots and fighting sounds were heard in the building. A few minutes later, Ronald, Roger's first man, was carried out by these ninjas. What a miserable fight. Although the distance was a bit far, Roger could still see Ronald's bloody face. At this time, Ronald seemed to have completely lost the strength to stand and could only let these Hand ninjas carry him away. When these ninjas carried Ronald into a dark alley not far from the building, 2 small trucks that looked like frozen meat transport trucks drove out of the alley. "So you drove here? I thought you ran all the way here." After seeing the 2 trucks driving out of the alley, a large amount of white silk threads flowed out of Roger's body, quickly forming the silk thread battlesuit that appeared during the day-to-day. Then, he carried the backpack with Captain America's shield on his back and followed the trucks from a distance. Manhattan, Hell's Kitchen. Following the 2 trucks, Roger came from Brooklyn to the famous Hell's Kitchen. When the 2 trucks drove into a meat processing plant, Roger, wearing a silk thread battlesuit, approached the factory for a close observation. After seeing the surveillance cameras spread throughout every corner of the factory and the secret sentries hidden in the dark, he knew that he had come to the right place tonight. Even if this processing plant is not the headquarters of the Hand in New York, it is an important branch. There are 2 reasons. The first is that ordinary bases do not need such strict security, and the second is that Ronald was brought here. According to Ronald's account, the person who met with him last night was Salander, one of the 5 fingers of the Hand. So if there is any problem with Ronald, it will be handled by Salander, a senior member of the Hand. Combined with these circumstances, even if this is not the headquarters of the Hand, it is at least an important base of Salander. In this case, most of the factors in his plan have been gathered. After finding a public telephone booth nearby, he dialed 911. He called the police 3 times in total. In the first call, he told the police officer that he saw a guy dressed like a white Spider-Man and holding Captain America's shield kidnapping a man into the factory and threatening to kill the man. In the second call, he changed the excuse of calling the police, saying that a man holding Captain America's shield was slaughtering people in the factory. For the third call, he used a different excuse, saying that Spider-Man was holding Captain America's shield and fighting with a group of ninjas in the factory, and many people died. In order to make these 3 calls, he changed 3 different phone booths and disguised 3 different voices. Although these 3 reasons for calling the police sounded unreliable, he was not worried that the police would not come. Even if it was a false alarm, the nearby police had to come. Moreover, his main purpose of calling the police was not to attract the police, but to attract the attention of SHIELD. White Spider-Man, Captain America's shield, ninjas. These pieces of information were meaningless to the police. But in the eyes of SHIELD, they had completely different meanings, especially when Captain America's shield had just been taken away. Chapter 33 Salander. Not long after, Roger, who was standing on the roof of a building near the factory, saw the police cars coming. Just when these police cars with sirens blaring just arrived at the factory gate, the shield convoy appeared on the other side of the street. Sure enough, they came. At this time when Captain America's shield was taken away, shield must have monitored the police channel. After the shield convoy rushed to the factory gate, the police who arrived first showed puzzled looks. After seeing Captain America in uniform walk down from the car empty-handed, all the police at the scene unconsciously recalled the content of the alarm they had just received. Captain America's shield is really gone. Captain America. Rogers glanced at these policemen without saying a word and quickly looked around. These policemen may not know what the situation is in this processing plant, but shield knows it clearly. This is an important branch of the Hand, and it can even be regarded as second only to the headquarters. When the police and shield people just arrived at the factory gate, the Hand ninjas in the factory noticed something was wrong. It's okay for the police to come, maybe it's just a routine inspection. But shield is here too, so things are not that simple. As a killer group active in the dark world, the Hand is most afraid of special organizations like shield, rather than the local police. So when taking action, the Hand will try to avoid dealing with organizations like shield as much as possible. In a room on the 2nd floor of the factory, sir, there are suddenly a lot of shield people and police outside. A ninja with only his eyes exposed said to Salander, who was exuding murderous intent. After hearing the report from the ninja, Salander took his eyes back from Ronald, and after a few seconds of silence, he said with an unhappy face, "Don't conflict with them, abandon this base, and leave from the secret entrance. Take this guy with you, don't let him die, before we find out who Doflamingo is." Salander pointed to Ronald, who was tied to a chair and his face was swollen like a pig's head. Although he didn't know why shield, who had always kept their distance from them, suddenly came to their door. In order not to affect the Hand's next great plan, he still decided to abandon the base. "Okay, sir." Just as the ninja was about to pass on Salander's order, a huge explosion suddenly came from the factory gate. It was not easy to get all the actors in place, and as a director, how could Roger let things end peacefully? So he took the initiative to attack. After quietly coming to the factory gate from the roof of the building, he cast parasitic line on a fully armed SHIELD Special Forces member. Under his control, the SHIELD Special Forces member picked up the grenade he was carrying, pulled out the pin, and threw the grenade into an empty police car. Boom. When the police car exploded, he took Captain America's shield in his left hand and appeared on the wall of the factory gate. Then, he raised his right hand and fired bullet lines at the special forces and police in front of him. Bang, bang, bang. Under the attack of the bullet line, the guns in the hands of several policemen and special forces were shattered. When the remaining special forces and policemen aimed their guns at him, he ran into the factory without looking back. Roger's sudden action not only surprised Captain America and others, but also shocked the hand ninja in the factory. For a moment, everyone had the same doubt in their minds. Where did this guy come from? After seeing Roger, who looked like a white Spider-Man, running into the factory without looking back, Captain America and others did not hesitate at all and rushed into the factory with their weapons. Captain America and the special forces rushed into the factory because they needed to take back the shield and arrest Roger, who was suspected to be an accomplice of Professor Lizard. The police rushed into the factory because they had never seen such arrogant criminals, blowing up the police car and shooting at them. This was a provocation to their New York police, a naked provocation. So, the SHIELD agents and police, who had not yet decided on the final command of the scene, rushed into the factory together. Although the hand ninjas didn't know who Roger was, they were sure of one thing, that is, Roger was definitely not one of their own. When Roger, wearing a silk battlesuit, rushed into the factory, the hand ninjas attacked him without saying a word. Roger chose to ignore the attacks of these hand ninjas. Wearing a silk battlesuit, he didn't need to worry about the damage of these melee weapons at all. However, this did not mean that he would let these ninjas attack him. He used moves such as Elastic Line, 5-color line, and Parasitic Line. At this time, he did not hold back at all and used the fastest speed to deal with the hand ninjas who blocked his way. His plan now only had the last step, which was also the most critical step. After dealing with the guy who blocked his way, he quickly searched inside the factory. Ronald was brought here, so the person who interrogated Ronald must be Salander. And Salander was the most important person in his plan. Although the factory was large, Roger's search speed was also very fast. Not long after, he ran into Salander in a corridor on the second floor of the factory. Although he had never seen Salander before, Salander was not difficult to recognize. Just by looking at his clothes and skin color, his identity could be basically determined. Salander, who was wearing a black suit, was standing next to two ninjas, and one of them was carrying Ronald, who had been severely tortured. After seeing Salander, Roger, whose face was completely covered by the silk battlesuit, smiled. Without any hesitation, he attacked Salander directly. Unlike those hand ninjas, Salander's strength was obviously much stronger. In any case, Salander was an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years, and he was also an old monster who had received Kunlun training. When Salander blocked his 5-color line with a seemingly ordinary samurai sword, Roger raised his hand and fired a few bullets. Some of these bullets were shot at Salander, and some were shot at the hand ninjas. But the one who was really hit was Ronald, who didn't even have the strength to stand. Under the attack of the bullet line, Ronald's head, which was swollen like a pig's head, exploded. This was not because Roger missed. He had no intention of saving Ronald's life from the beginning. After killing Ronald, Roger attacked Salander again. It must be said that the fighting ability and physical fitness of Salander and other Kunlun traitors are much stronger than those ninjas of the hand. In the close combat, Roger did not get any benefits from Salander. If it were not for the silk thread battlesuit on his body, he would have been left with many scars by Salander. Roger was not surprised that he could not take Salander in close combat. He had been in this world for less than a week, and the body transformation he had received had not yet fully exerted its effect. In short, the degree of his body's puritization was not enough. More importantly, Salander was a person who had received orthodox education from Kunlun, and after defecting from Kunlun, he did not forget to continue to hone his skills. This also meant that his close combat level was destined to be stronger than Roger, who had only received training in the time travel training class. However, this did not affect Roger's next plan, because he knew from the beginning that it would not be so easy to deal with Salander. If the 5 fingers of the hand were so easy to deal with, the system would not have given such a high reward, and he would not have needed to plan tonight's action specifically. Let Ronald announce to the public that he had joined the Don Quixote family, snatch Captain America's shield, and lead SHIELD and the police here. All of this was just his preparation to complete the bounty mission. Although he could not gain any advantage in the close combat with Salander, during the time of close contact with Salander, he quietly wrapped Captain America's shield with silk thread. Afterwards, after using the amazing defense of the silk thread battlesuit to resist Salander's knife, he tied the shield to Salander. Salander did not give him time to pull the silk thread, to cut and hurt him, and in fact, He did not intend to cut Salander with the silk thread. Tying the shield to Salander was his whole purpose. P.S. I continue to ask for collections, recommendation tickets, monthly tickets, comments, and chapter comments. By the way, regarding the update, due to the new book period, I can't update too much. If the number of words is too large, it is easy to miss the new book period and recommendation arrangements, so now I can only guarantee 2 updates a day. Although I don't know if I can still advance to the next recommendation, but what if? Chapter 34, Driving the Tiger to Devour the Wolf. After tying Captain America's shield firmly to Salander's back, Roger did not hesitate, and immediately stepped back a distance. What is this guy going to do? Salander would never have thought that Roger would make such an abnormal move in the process of close combat. After the fight just now, he was basically sure that the guy in front of him, who was dressed like Spider-Man, was the young Master Don Quixote mentioned by Ronald. Appearance can be disguised, but moves can't deceive people. Although he did not witness the scene of Roger killing the ninja of the Heroic Society last night, he could roughly infer the scene at that time through Ronald's description. In addition, what he cared about more was where this guy who claimed to be Don Quixote got Captain America's shield. In the battle just now, he found that the shield in Roger's hand was not a fake counterfeit, but a genuine Captain America shield. The special metal texture and unscientific performance are not what a counterfeit can do. Just as Salander was thinking about why Roger tied the shield to him, Captain America Rogers, who had a classic American hip, came to the second floor and saw Salander and Roger, who were confronting each other. After noticing the arrival of Captain America, Roger controlled the silk thread suit and let the thin thread take out the mobile phone in his pocket. Then, he raised his mobile phone, pressed the camera button at Captain America and Salander, and recorded a short video by the way. After doing all this, he put the phone back in his pocket. Then, under the watchful eyes of Captain America and Salander, he jumped directly out of the window in the passage. What exactly was he going to do? After seeing Roger leave without looking back, Captain America, Rogers and Salander were stunned for a moment. Although they couldn't figure out what Roger wanted to do, they didn't have much time to think about it now. When Roger left, Captain America Rogers quickly attacked Salander. In just a blink of an eye, Captain America was entangled with Salander. Meanwhile, Roger sat on the rooftop of a nearby building with a calm face, patiently waiting for the next development of the matter. He had specially arranged for Captain America to fight Salander. To be precise, he hoped that shield could fight the hand thoroughly. The bounty task issued by the system required him to kill all the 5 fingers of the hand, which was not an easy task for him who was currently alone. Not to mention that he didn't know where the New York headquarters of the hand was. Even if he found the New York headquarters of the hand, with his current ability, he was not the opponent of the 5 fingers of the hand. In order to complete the bounty task of the system, he had to rely on some external forces, and shield was a good target. But this would bring a new problem. That was how to make shield and the hand, who had never interfered with each other, fight to the death. In his original plan, he only needed to follow the ninja who kidnapped Ronald here tonight, and then find a way to kill Salander. However, the little episode that happened this morning made him change his plan. The appearance of Captain America Rogers gave him hope of completing the bounty mission quickly in a short period of time. So he snatched Captain America's shield and planned everything tonight so that shield and the hand would fight head on. As long as Captain America Rogers fought with Salander, no matter who won in the end, it would not affect his final plan. If Captain America won, Salander would either be captured or killed. Then those crazy people in the hand would definitely launch a rescue or revenge operation for Salander and confront shield head on. Although this seems unlikely, the hand is just such a group of crazy people. After all, people who believe in demons and work for demons are not very smart. If Salander won, Captain America might not die, but in this case, whether for face or to take back the shield, shield would not let the hand go. So no matter how things develop, they will develop in a direction that is beneficial to Roger. At that time, the difficulty of completing the bounty mission will also be reduced sharply. Of course, this will also cause him to appear on shield's watch list, but these are all trivial matters. Unless he intends to be an ordinary person who abides by the law, he will sooner or later appear on the list of shield's attention. It's just a matter of time. Compared with the benefits obtained, this insignificant risk of exposure is completely acceptable. The battle between Captain America and Salander did not last long. With more and more SHIELD agents and police reinforcement, Salander quickly made the decision to retreat. After letting his ninjas stop Captain America, Salander carried Captain America's shield and fled the factory. Roger did not follow, but watched Salander leave. Then, he secretly broke into a school office and sent those photos and videos to major news media. Although SHIELD may not choose to deal with this matter coldly, just in case, Roger decided to completely eliminate SHIELD's idea. After doing all this, he left the school and returned to Forest Hills Tower with a silk thread. Everything that should be prepared is ready, so the next thing to do is to wait patiently for the opportunity to fish in troubled waters. The next day, he got up early and turned on the TV to watch the morning news. As he expected, all the major news channels were reporting on SHIELD's actions last night. The photos and short videos he sent to these news media were also played without suspense. A good day starts in the morning. Looking at the news reports, Roger drank a sip of coffee brewed by the puppet with satisfaction. At this point, even if the hand returns Captain America's shield to SHIELD, it will not help. Regardless of whether people will believe it or not, the past deeds of the hand that have been reported are enough for SHIELD and the police to list the hand as a key target. SHIELD may not want to pay much attention to the hand before, but now they have to use actions to prove that they have the strength to protect people's lives and safety. More importantly, SHIELD needs to eliminate the hand to wash away the crisis of trust they are experiencing now. If SHIELD can't even take Captain America's shield back from the hand, how can people believe that they have the ability to maintain world peace and protect people's lives and safety? People's trust is useless at times, but at other times, it is extremely important, even to the point where it needs to be maintained with life and blood. Only when SHIELD decides to go all out to deal with the hand, Roger's plan of driving the tiger to devour the wolf can be truly implemented. As for whether SHIELD will lose some face because of this, it has nothing to do with him. Chapter 35, Real Villain and Hypocrite. Roger doesn't like Hydra, which is secretly doing things all day and trying to rule the world. He also doesn't like SHIELD, which thinks it is a messenger of justice and thinks that only they can maintain world peace. In his opinion, the biggest difference between Hydra and SHIELD is nothing more than the difference between a real villain and a hypocrite. What Hydra wants to do is to forcibly take away people's freedom through violent threats and take the whole world for itself. Although SHIELD has done it more tactfully and has also brought up the banner of maintaining world peace, it is also depriving people of the right to choose freely. And in some aspects, SHIELD has done more than Hydra. For example, invading privacy and restricting freedom. Those who do not meet SHIELD's judgment criteria are potential threat factors. Those who do not recognize SHIELD's practices do not recognize justice and peace. Why should this standard be set by SHIELD? Is it because SHIELD made the eagle as a logo? SHIELD may have protected the world, but at the same time, SHIELD has also brought a lot of trouble to the world. If there is no SHIELD, many things will not happen. In Roger's opinion, SHIELD is no different from America, which claims to be the world police. They all talk about peace and justice, but they are all profit-driven businesses behind the scenes. After watching the news for more than 10 minutes, Roger changed into his clothes for going out, took his mobile phone and wallet and went out. After having a breakfast for 5 people at a Chinese restaurant that he had been to several times, he stopped a taxi and started to head to Manhattan. The radio station also broadcast reports about SHIELD and the hand, and some experts who were unknown were making comments and opinions. Roger ignored the sound from the radio and concentrated on sensing the silk thread on Salander's body. His extreme control range of the silk thread was only about 100 meters, but his perception range was much larger than this. The silk thread created by the thread fruit requires him to continuously provide energy to maintain it for a long time. Otherwise, the silk thread will automatically dissipate after 10 minutes. So while constantly maintaining the existence of the silk thread, he can feel the approximate location of the silk thread. Of course, the farther the distance, the more vague the perceived direction is, and there will only be a general direction. As the distance gets closer, the perceived direction will become more and more obvious. He can only roughly confirm that the silk thread is in the Manhattan area, but he needs to go to that place in Manhattan to further confirm it. This positioning method is not efficient, but it is enough for him to find Salander's whereabouts. And if nothing unexpected happens, he can not only find Salander, but also the remaining 4 fingers. When the taxi slowly drove into Manhattan, Roger set a new address, based on the perceived location. After 3 or 4 address changes, he finally confirmed the final location of the silk thread. He did not let the driver drive directly there, but got off in the neighborhood near the location of the silk thread. After getting off the car, he came to a small alley next to it, and began his routine disguise. Wire armor. This time, he did not let the silk thread weave into the shape of Spider-Man's battlesuit, but combined it into the shape of armor. As for the style of the armor, he referred to Tony's iron suit, which has not yet been invented. Although the armor-shaped battlesuit is not as flexible as the close-fitting silk battlesuit, it has stronger defense than the silk battlesuit. This is more suitable for Roger, whose melee combat level is not as good as Salander's for the time being. For the next battle, when the white wire armor was formed, he shot the silk thread towards a nearby rooftop. When he wore the wire armor and approached the position of the perceived silk thread little by little, he soon found something wrong. It's too quiet around. Manhattan is one of the most densely populated areas in the world. Here, you can see a large number of pedestrians and vehicles, no matter morning or night. But at this time, when Roger entered the block, where the silk thread was located, he found that the block was a little too quiet. Not only were there not many pedestrians, but there were not even a few cars on the street. Has it been evacuated? After seeing this scene in front of him, he immediately remembered the most common thing that official agencies do before taking action. Evacuate the surrounding people. After discovering this, he did not immediately rush to the perceived location, but landed on the roof of a building. Just as he was about to confirm whether it was S.H.I.E.L.D. who was taking action, a violent explosion suddenly came from a building in the distance. It was a building with only more than 10 floors. It looked ordinary, just like an old-fashioned office building in the 1970s and 1980s. However, at this time, the orange-red explosion flames burst out from the 4th floor of the building, shattering the exterior glass of the upper and lower floors. It was indeed S.H.I.E.L.D. Looking at the S.H.I.E.L.D. special forces who kept rushing into the building, Roger didn't hesitate at all and rushed over with the silk thread. As soon as he approached the building, the S.H.I.E.L.D. special forces responsible for the outer perimeter defense pulled the trigger at him. Dense bullets hit the wire armor one after another, and then bounced off one by one. After experiencing the shooting of the Black Widow Natasha, he developed a new way to prevent impact, that is, to create a special buffer layer on the inner layer of the wire armor. The thin and close-fitting silk thread battlesuit cannot do this, but the wire armor can do it. There is enough space inside the wire armor for him to create a buffer layer. Under the continuous shooting of these bullets, Roger came to the roof of the building and saw the S.H.I.E.L.D. special forces who had the same idea as him, as well as the Black Widow Natasha. Breaking through from the ground and the roof at the same time is the usual practice of the official troops. The only thing Roger didn't expect was that he actually met the Black Widow Natasha again. Although he changed his appearance now, the Black Widow recognized him at a glance. Without any hesitation, the Black Widow decisively drew her gun and shot. Bang bang bang. When the Black Widow fired, the S.H.I.E.L.D. special forces who had not yet entered the building also fired. The wire armor can indeed defend against bullets, and it can also greatly reduce the impact of bullets. But Roger didn't have the habit of standing still and being a target. Since these people were shooting at him, he certainly wouldn't be polite to them. Bullet line. He raised both hands at the same time and fired bullet lines with both hands at the same time. Although the bullet line is not a real bullet, its power is no less than that of a bullet. Under his crazy shooting, the S.H.I.E.L.D. special forces on the roof soon suffered casualties. However, this was just the beginning. While these special forces were dodging the bullet lines and trying to suppress Roger with firepower, Roger shot bullet lines at the helicopter that had not yet moved away. First, shoot the vertical rotor at the tail to destroy the anti-torque required for the helicopter to maintain balance. Then shoot the horizontal rotor that provides the main flight power. Roger didn't even need to aim. He just had to shoot the silk thread at the vertical rotor and the horizontal rotor, and the rotor would be entangled with these silk threads by itself. The helicopter, with both the vertical and horizontal rotors entangled in the silk threads, quickly lost control and rushed towards the roof of the building with black smoke. Boom. PS. Keep asking for collection. Recommendation. This chapter says, the macho pink cover doesn't seem to be suitable for the male channel. Now it has been changed to black. Chapter 36 Madame Gao. The out-of-control helicopter crashed heavily onto the rooftop, and the flames of the explosion swept across the rooftop like a wave of seawater. The entire building was slightly shaken by the explosion. At the moment, when the helicopter was about to crash on the rooftop, Roger, wearing a wire armor, shot a thread toward the building next to it, and left the rooftop swinging on the thread. As the initiator of all this, he ignored the tragic situation on the rooftop, shot out the thread again, and entered the building from other floors. He didn't come here to start a war with S.H.I.E.L.D. He had only one goal from beginning to end, which was to kill the 5 fingers of the hand with his own hands. The attention of the hand was now focused on S.H.I.E.L.D., and they didn't notice Roger's arrival at all. This also made his infiltration much easier. Most of the ninjas of the hand were now trying to stop the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents from entering from the first floor and the rooftop. They would never have thought that a guy with bad intentions had already come to the middle floor of the building. In order to avoid being discovered as much as possible, Roger adopted a perfect way to infiltrate. This is the perfect infiltration method passed down by a certain Kang-style assassin who did not want to reveal his name. Roger is not an assassin, but this does not prevent him from learning the infiltration method of this Kang-style predecessor. Elastic line, 5-color line, parasitic line, silk thread trap. At this time, Roger is like a ghost hiding in the dark, constantly harvesting ninjas he meets. Because the ninjas of the hand will turn into ashes after death, he does not even need to consider the problem of dealing with the corpse. The continuous explosions and gunshots from upstairs and downstairs have become his best cover now. After sneaking in the building for a while, he finally met one of his targets. This is an oldie station woman who looks very kind, holding a very common wooden cane in her hand. Madame Gao. At the first sight of Madame Gao, Roger recognized her identity, and the relevant information of Madame Gao emerged in his mind. Like Sawander, Madame Gao is also a traitor of Kunlun. This means that she is also good at close combat. In addition to being extremely long-lived and good at fighting, Madame Gao is also a master of tactics and language, and even has the ability to move objects with her mind. It can be said that except for her physical fitness, Madame Gao is no weaker than Salander in other abilities. Compared with Salander, who can only fight in close combat, Madame Gao, who has the ability to move objects with her mind, is obviously more difficult to deal with. After discovering Madame Gao's trace, Roger did not rashly launch an attack, but thought quickly. Madame Gao was not alone, and there were 4 ninjas wearing dark red ninja uniforms beside her. Although Roger did not know how strong these 4 hand ninjas were, from the fact that Madame Gao brought them with her, they were definitely not ordinary hand ninjas, and they might even master some strange magic. After observing the surrounding environment, he quickly came up with a plan. There are a total of 15 floors in the building, and he is currently on the 9th floor. On this floor, in addition to the hand ninjas that have turned into ashes, there are only Madame Gao and the 4 ninjas. As long as he can seal the entrances and exits of the 9th floor, this place can become a quiet battlefield that will not be disturbed by anyone for the time being. There are 3 entrances and exits on the 9th floor. They are the escape stairs on both sides and the elevator in the middle. The elevator does not need to be dealt with. From the moment S.H.I.E.L.D. launched the attack, S.H.I.E.L.D. locked the operation of the elevator. So the only entrances and exits he wants to seal are the escape stairs on both sides of the 9th floor. At this time, Mrs. Gao was staying in the monitoring room, observing the battle in the building through the monitoring screen and constantly issuing the latest orders. Looking at Mrs. Gao, who had not yet discovered his arrival, Roger walked directly towards the escape stairs without any hesitation. When arranging the silk threads between the 2 escape stairs, he did not forget to arrange the silk threads in the passages and windows. Although it is unlikely that other people will swing in directly from the window except him. But it is always better to be careful. While avoiding the camera, he carefully arranged the silk threads. A few minutes later, Roger condensed a white samurai sword with silk threads. Then, he walked towards the monitoring room, where Mrs. Gao was. The battlefield has been arranged, and the only thing left is to take down Madame Gao. After arriving near the monitoring room, Roger raised his right hand and pointed his finger at Madame Gao in the monitoring room. Bullet. Without any hesitation, he fired the bullet directly at Madame Gao. Bang! The bullet-like bullet pierced the glass of the monitoring room and flew towards Madame Gao. However, at the moment when the bullet was about to hit Madame Gao took a step back and easily avoided the bullet. Kill him. Although Roger's look today was a little different from last night, Madame Gao knew that he was the guy who tied Captain America's shield to Salamander. As soon as Madame Gao finished speaking, the four hand-headed ninjas standing motionless beside her attacked Roger like ghosts. It was indeed a little different. After seeing the speed displayed by the four ninjas, Roger did not hesitate, turned around and ran, and disappeared at the corner of the passage in the blink of an eye. Roger ran very fast, but the speed of the four ninjas was not slow at all. In a few seconds, his figure appeared in the sight of these ninjas. After running into this passage without surveillance cameras, Roger stopped and took a fighting stance with the wire knife in his hand. Although Roger's behavior was a bit abnormal, the four ninjas did not hesitate at all. They immediately drew the samurai swords behind them and rushed towards him. 10 meters, 5 meters, 3 meters. Just when the four-hand ninjas rushed to Roger's distance of about 3 meters, the two-hand ninjas running in the front suddenly had their heads separated. The heads of the two-hand ninjas were separated from their bodies in an instant, and a very smooth cut appeared on their necks, and bright red blood splashed up. After seeing the two ninjas being beheaded in an instant, the remaining two ninjas stopped forcibly and looked at the transparent thin wire that was not much thicker than a hair. This is a very simple trap. Roger just left an imperceptible sharp thin wire in the passage and then lured these ninjas to run over by themselves. If the two ninjas had been a little more alert, they might have discovered the thin thread. Unfortunately, they were too arrogant. An enemy who ran away upon meeting someone might not be afraid, but might have done it on purpose. The two ninjas whose heads were cut off by the thin thread obviously did not understand this principle. Chapter 37, Funeral. Come on, I'm in a hurry. Although he had sealed the entrance and exit of the 9th floor, it was only an ordinary entrance and exit. Who knows if others will directly blow through the ceiling and floor to get in. Besides Madame Gao, he has several other targets to deal with. After seeing Roger arrogantly hooking his finger at them, the remaining two ninjas not only did not attack immediately, but became more vigilant and carefully observed the surrounding environment. Sooner or later, they will die. Why waste everyone's time? Roger looked at the two ninjas who were already alert, and 5 almost transparent thin threads emerged from the fingers of his left hand. Under his control, these 5 thin threads flew to the ceiling and floor respectively, and did not attack the two ninjas. When these 5 thin threads were entangled with other silk threads that he had already arranged, Roger did not hesitate at all, and pulled hard with his left hand. In an instant, a large number of thin threads emerged from the ceiling and the ground, forming a death net with no blind spots. This sharp thin net like a fishing net instantly came in front of the two ninjas. Swish! The fishing net shrank rapidly, and the hand ninjas in the net were cut into pieces without even a chance to resist. Then, they turned into flying ash and disappeared. When these hand ninjas followed him into this passage, their fate of death was doomed. After removing all the silk threads in the passage, Roger walked towards Madame Gao with a wire knife. As for how to deal with Madame Gao, he already had a general idea when he set up the trap just now. Of course, whether the plan can succeed depends on whether Madame Gao is willing to cooperate with him. When Roger, wearing wire armor, appeared in front of her again, Madame Gao was slightly stunned. She didn't expect that Roger would deal with the 4 ninjas so quickly. You know, the 4 ninjas are not ordinary ninjas, but guards she carefully selected. The hand has never offended the Don Quixote family. Why do you have to make things difficult for the hand? After looking at Roger, Madame Gao took the initiative to speak. Who said I have to offend you before I can get into trouble with you? After hearing Mrs. Gao mention the Don Quixote family, Roger in the wire armor suppressed his smile and answered silently. It seems that the hand really believes that there is a family called Don Quixote in this world. From this point of view, Ronald's death is very valuable. In this case, let me Before she finished speaking, Mrs. Gao showed an amazing speed that was completely inconsistent with her appearance and came to Roger in an instant. At the same time, the cane in her hand pierced Roger's eyes with lightning. Although Mrs. Gao didn't know what Roger's wire armor was, but it was obvious that the position of the eyes was the weakness of this set of armor. From the structure of the armor, Mrs. Gao's judgment could not be said to be wrong. However, Roger's wire armor was not an ordinary armor. When Mrs. Gao's cane stabbed at his eyes, Roger controlled the silk thread on the helmet and filled the eye hole with the silk thread instantly. Ding. It was obviously a wooden cane, but at this time it made a metallic collision sound. Mrs. Gao's attack was fierce. Whether it was the speed of the attack or the angle of the attack, it was perfect. Although Roger didn't like the hand, he had to admit that Madame Gao and the other 5 Kunlun traitors did have strength far beyond that of ordinary people. Long life, knowledge, good physique, strong fighting skills. In terms of close combat, he was no match for old monsters like Madame Gao who had lived for hundreds of years. However, he also had advantages that Madame Gao and the others did not have at all. After using the wire armor to resist Madame Gao's attack, Roger swung the wire knife in his right hand with force, and the blade directly slashed at Madame Gao's neck. However, as soon as his right hand was raised, Madame Gao's counterattack arrived. Madame Gao turned her wrist slightly, grabbed his right hand, and forcibly resolved the knife that he had not yet completely swung. Too weak, too slow. With this little strength, you dare to go against the hand. You really don't know how high the sky is? Madame Gao said with disdain, after grabbing Roger's wrist with her left hand that didn't seem to have much muscle. She had thought that Roger would have some extraordinary abilities, but now, she found that she had thought too much. Apart from this strange armor, in her opinion, Roger was useless. Really? But I think it's not me who doesn't know the height of the world, but you. After hearing Roger's words, Mrs. Gao instinctively sensed the crisis. However, it was too late. Countless silk threads spread from Roger's right hand to her left hand, instantly covering half of her arm. I'm slow to give you a chance to grab my right hand. I'm weak to prevent you from hitting and running. Living longer can give you more experience and stronger power, but it can also make people arrogant. Roger's voice kept coming from the armor. While he was talking, Mrs. Gao tried to break free from the silk thread, entangled in her left hand. But her efforts were doomed to be in vain. If the silk thread of the thread fruit was so easily torn, the thread fruit would be too useless. Your only chance to escape now is to cut off your left hand. But even if you cut off your left hand, you can't leave here alive. It will only prolong your suffering. Roger's close combat ability is indeed not as good as Mrs. Gao's, but the one he can't beat in close combat is Mrs. Gao, who has both hands intact. Without one hand, even if Mrs. Gao has more combat experience and more sophisticated combat skills, she will not be his opponent. Mrs. Gao is a master of psychological manipulation and can disrupt her opponent's thoughts with a few words of conversation. But now, her thoughts are disturbed by Roger's words. It seems that you don't have the determination to cut off your arm. In this case, let me send you on your way. As soon as the voice fell, all the silk threads on the wire armor came alive and flew towards Mrs. Gao like a swarm of bees. In just 1 or 2 seconds, Mrs. Gao was tied up into a mummy by countless silk threads. After using the silk threads on the wire armor to tie Mrs. Gao into a mummy, Roger turned and left. After walking more than 10 meters, he opened his left hand and then suddenly clenched his fist. Funeral with thread waterfall. Bang. The thread wrapped around Madame Gao instantly shrank, crushing Madame Gao inside like a watermelon. Bright red blood slowly seeped out from the gaps in the thread, dripping onto the floor. Funeral with thread waterfall was a name he casually gave, which came from a ninja with the word love written on his forehead. Although the substances being manipulated were different, the final result was the same. That was to crush the bound enemy into pieces with tremendous pressure. Chapter 38 Fruit Level Upgrade. Bounty Mission, kill the 5 fingers of the hand. Mission reward. 30 million berries, the door-to-door fruit. Mission progress. 1/5. After killing Madame Gao, Roger opened the system page and took a look. Compared with when the mission was first released, there was an additional description of the mission progress in the taskbar. After closing the system page, he removed all the silk threads on the 9th floor and put on the wire armor again. After sensing the location of the silk threads that should have been on Salander, he walked downstairs along the escape stairs. Although he couldn't confirm that the 4 targets including Salander were in the building at this time, even if only Madame Gao and Salander were here, it was enough. It would be best if the 5 fingers of the hand could be eliminated at once, but the reality was not as perfect as imagined. The 5 fingers of the hand were not fools. They couldn't all stay in one place at this time and let SHIELD catch them all. After coming to the 6th floor from the 9th floor, he did not sneak and assassinate like he did on the 9th floor, but took the wire knife and went straight to meet the ninjas he met. The shield people have now reached the 4th floor, and it won't be long before they can attack the 6th floor. By then, no one can guarantee whether Salander will die at the hands of the shield people or Roger. If Salander is killed by a stray bullet or something, that would be a lot of fun. In order to avoid such an accident, Roger decided to kill Salander before the shield people arrived at the 6th floor. Ding, ding, ding. The sound of metal weapons colliding continued to sound on the 6th floor of the building. Roger, wearing wire armor, put all his mind on attacking, killing the hand ninjas he met at the fastest speed. His reckless attack soon attracted the attention of all the hand ninjas on the 6th floor. But even so, he had no intention of changing his tactics. Although the hand ninjas would turn into ashes and disappear after death, before they died, the hand ninjas would still splatter with human red blood. In Roger's berserker-like attack, the white wire armor was gradually stained red with blood, but he ignored it and continued his crazy killing. In order to make his killing more efficient, he even imitated symbiotes such as venom, turning the silk threads on the wire armor into various weapons to attack the hand ninjas. Under the siege of these hand ninjas who fought one after another and didn't care about life and death, his close combat skills became more and more proficient. Strike, 5 color line, strike, 5 color line, strike, sweep, chop, poke, cut, chop, thrust. As more and more hand ninjas were killed, Roger also felt a strange feeling, as if he had turned on the unparalleled. Just as he was about to enjoy this unparalleled battle, a system prompt message suddenly appeared in his mind. Devil Fruit, main, string fruit LV2. Roger had never thought that the level of the string fruit would be raised to LV2 at this time. Although he had been training hard during this period, he estimated that he would need at least another week to raise the string fruit to LV2. Although the level of the string fruit was higher than he expected, his attacks did not stop at all and even became more efficient. The increase in the level of the fruit not only brought about a change in numbers, but also a real increase in proficiency. In short, the use of the string fruit became more and more handy. The increase in the level of the fruit also significantly improved the sharpness, flexibility, and control range of the silk thread. The same moves, performed by different levels of fruit, have completely different powers. Take the bullet string for example. The bullet string Roger fired before may have only the power of an ordinary pistol. But now, the bullet string he fired is comparable to the bullet fired by a rifle. When the string fruit was only LV1, these hand ninjas were already unable to stop Roger, who was like a berserker. When the level of the string fruit was upgraded to LV2, it was even more impossible for them to stop Roger. After a few dozen seconds, when all the hand ninjas in his sight turned into ashes, he finally stopped and gasped for breath. The level of the string fruit was upgraded, but his physical fitness obviously did not improve with it. He did not count how many hand ninjas he had just killed. The only thing he could be sure of was that his right hand was a little sore now. If you chop too many people, you will get tired. The kind of thing that holding 2 machetes, chopping from Nanshanman to Penglai East Road, back and forth for 3 days and 3 nights, without blinking, is not something that a normal person can do. At least Roger felt that he could not do it now. Not to mention, whether he was tired or not, the main thing was that his eyes would be very dry. After moving his slightly sore right hand, he continued to walk towards the aisle in front. He sensed that the silk thread was on the other side of the aisle. Although Salander may not be on the 6th floor now, it is always okay to go over and take a look. and his intuition tells him that, as long as he walks around the corner of the corridor, he will meet the person he wants to see. Sure enough, after walking around the corner of the corridor, he saw a familiar figure and a less familiar figure. The familiar one was Salander, whom he had met last night, and the man next to Salander was the first time he saw him. However, he knew who this man was. The 5 fingers of the hand are white men, black men, Asian men, white women, and old Asian women. So the man next to Salander, no need to guess, knows that he is Muramasa, one of the 5 fingers of the hand. Unlike Salander, who was wearing a black suit, Muramasa was wearing a traditional white kimono, and a samurai sword that looked a bit expensive was hung around his waist. Buy one get 2 free. I like it. Looking at Salander and Muramasa holding Captain America's shield, Roger felt that he had good luck today. You again. Salander looked at Roger with a bad face and said in a cold tone, "Is he the Doflamingo?" Muramasa asked Salander before Roger spoke. "That's the guy." After hearing Salander's answer, Muramasa, wearing a white kimono, walked out first and drew the samurai sword from his waist in a pleasing standard posture. Seeing Muramasa holding the sword with both hands and posing a fighting posture ready to attack at any time, Roger in the wire armor smiled. Then, he condensed a white scabbard with his left hand and put the wire sword into it. Under the gaze of Salander and Muramasa, he took a half step with his right foot, bent his leg slightly, and held his right hand above the hilt. Aido. Muramasa recognized Roger's posture at a glance and understood his intention. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 39 Muramasa. As the only Japanese among the 5 fingers of the hand, Muramasa is familiar with all kinds of Japanese kendo and traditional martial arts. As for why he, a Japanese, was chosen by Kunlun, Roger did not know the specific reason, nor was he interested in knowing. After the system issued the second bounty task, Muramasa and others were no different from dead people in his eyes. Aido, also known as the way of drawing the sword. However, compared with these 2 names, ordinary people prefer to call Aido Aido. The concept of Aido is very simple, so simple that it is almost straightforward. That is to draw the sword at the fastest speed to defeat the enemy and pursue the true meaning of one-hit kill. Although Roger is not a real Japanese samurai, as a time traveler, especially a time traveler who graduated with full marks, he is not unfamiliar with Aido. He even practiced it for a period of time. In fact, he has practiced far more than Aido, Wing Chun, Hung Gar, Sanda, Muay Thai, Jeet Kune Do, Karate, Taekwondo, Israeli fighting skills, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He has learned most of the world's well-known fighting techniques to a greater or lesser extent. Regardless of the actual power, at least in terms of posture, he is no different from those professional fighters. In addition to these fighting techniques, he also has some knowledge of shooting techniques such as Mozambique shooting, contact shooting, directional shooting, and cars shooting. There is no other way. After all, it is better to have more skills than less. As for subjects such as musical instrument playing, cooking, and wilderness survival training, they are also electives in the training class for time travelers. After seeing Roger posing an extremely standard Aido posture, Muramasa's eyes became extremely sharp, and he did not hide his strong killing intent at all. Although it was the first time he met Roger, Roger's actions, in his opinion, were no different from provocation. Muramasa, holding a knife in both hands, approached Roger step by step. After reaching the distance most suitable for his explosion, Muramasa did not hesitate at all, shouted loudly, and the whole person came in front of Roger like a white ghost. The samurai sword made of fine steel in his hand struck Roger's head like lightning. When Muramasa flashed in front of him, Roger also used the long accumulated IAI slash. Draw the sword, all in one go. The white wire sword flashed in Muramasa's sight. Clang. Compared with Muramasa, Roger's IAI slash was still a little slower, and the samurai sword in Muramasa's hand chopped his head first. Even with the protection of the wire armor, Roger still felt the impact on his head. The wire armor helmet had never been cut by the hand ninja, and now a visible crack appeared. But that's all. The wire armor helmet did have a crack, but it was still a long way from being completely cut through. Muramasa never thought that his sword, which was enough to cut through steel, could not cut through Roger's helmet. What was this? Seeing the broken silk thread in the crack of the helmet, he reacted instantly. This is not an ordinary metal armor, but an armor woven with special silk threads. The silk threads wrapped around cylinder were cut by Muramasa. To some extent, he was the one who knew the toughness of the thread fruit best in the hand. But he didn't expect that such tough threads could be woven into armor, and it looked no different from real metal armor. After noticing this, Muramasa realized that something was wrong. However, the thread knife in Roger's hand had already cut across his chest. TSK. With a strong body far beyond that of a normal person, Muramasa retreated a little at the last moment, turning Roger's knife, which could have seriously injured him, into a minor injury that did not affect his combat effectiveness. What a quick reaction. After seeing Muramasa retreat several steps in a row, Roger put the thread knife back into the scabbard and repaired the crack on his helmet. Although Muramasa and his friends were traitors of Kunlun, it cannot be denied that they had received orthodox education from Kunlun and escaped from Kunlun's pursuit. It is not impossible to defeat them with ordinary fighting moves, but given Roger's current physical fitness, it is still difficult for the time being. Since ordinary fighting moves are useless, he can only rely on his most powerful trump card, the string fruit. Roger now has 4 string fruit moves. Elastic string, 5 color string, parasitic string, and the string armor he created. As for the string knife, string falls funeral, and silk trap, these are the skills of using silk threads, and have not yet reached the level of combat moves. Judging from the number of combat moves, he does not have many moves now. However, this does not prevent him from using the string fruit, especially after the string fruit has been upgraded to LV2. While Muramasa did not launch a second offensive, he quickly recalled Doflamingo's combat moves in his mind and selected a few moves that he could currently use. Moves that can only be used after the string fruit awakens, as well as the birdcage and shadow rider line, which have extremely high requirements for the fruit level and control ability, were first excluded by him. After excluding these moves, there are only a few moves left for him to choose. After deciding on the moves to use next, he removed the string knife with the knife and sheath. Then, he ran straight towards Muramasa, who looked alert. His melee combat ability and physical fitness were not as good as Muramasa and Salander, but he still chose to compete with Muramasa in melee combat. The reason was simple, because the next moves of the string fruit he was going to use were all melee moves. In a blink of an eye, he came in front of Muramasa wearing a string armor, and his right hand attacked Muramasa like a beast claw. 5 color lines. 5 almost transparent thin lines attacked Muramasa at the same time. Then, Muramasa easily blocked them. The 5 color lines were indeed very sharp, but they were not to the point where they could easily cut off Muramasa's samurai sword. After the 5 color lines were blocked, Roger did not stop attacking and raised his left foot to kick. Foot shaving line. This was the first time Roger used a move he had never practiced in a battle. The moment he raised his leg, Muramasa decisively retreated a distance, trying to avoid his kick. In terms of distance, Muramasa did avoid it, but the attack distance of the foot shaving line was much longer than he imagined. As Muramasa retreated with the sword, 8 thin lines appeared on Roger's toes. These 8 nearly transparent sharp thin lines flew towards Muramasa at high speed along the direction of the kick. From the perspective of the form of performance, the Ashen line is the 5 color line like a kicking skill. The only difference between the two is the number of thin lines and the different parts of the release. As for the 5 color line, it has 5 fancy colors. If necessary, the Ashen line can also be used. For Roger, who is already proficient in the 5 color line and the fruit level has been raised to LV2, he is confident that he can perform the Ashen line without practicing it. Sure enough, the Ashen line was successfully performed by him and attacked Muramasa, who was far from retreating. The appearance of the Ashen line was indeed beyond Muramasa's expectations, but he was an experienced samurai who had lived for hundreds of years. Muramasa waved his hand casually, and the samurai sword in his hand showed amazing speed, and blocked the attack of the Ashen line. However, Roger's attack was far from over. Just when Muramasa focused all his attention on the foot shaving line, he raised his left hand and waved it down vigorously. Downgrade the rogue line. PS. Thank you Alex Bingfeng for the reward. Thank you for your support. The apprentice has successfully advanced to the category strong recommendation and finally did not become a one-round trial promotion. Thank you all for your support this week. Now that we have come to this, let's continue to talk about the recommendation. According to the normal listing process, after the strong classification, it must be promoted at least 2 or 3 times before it can reach the homepage strong recommendation position. Only after going through the entire recommendation process can the novel get enough collections, and can it be guaranteed that the subscription data after listing will not be too ugly. So if you think The Apprentice's new book is worth reading, you might as well support it more. Collection, recommendation tickets, monthly tickets, comments, this chapter comment. No matter what kind of support, it's all fine. I'm begging you all. Chapter 40, Rogue Line. 5 nearly transparent thin threads fell from Muramasa's head at high speed like leaf rakes. Roger did not expect the Ashina line to injure Muramasa from the beginning. Since Muramasa, who was skilled in swordsmanship, could block the 5-color thread, he could certainly block the Ashina line. So from the beginning, the Ashina line was just a feint to attract Muramasa's attention. As Roger expected, Muramasa focused on the sudden attack of the Ashina line, thus ignoring the Jiang Wu Yao line from above his head. Swish! The 5 sharp threads of the Jiang Wu Yao line struck down with lightning and pierced Muramasa's shoulders and back without any suspense. After piercing Muramasa's body, the extremely sharp threads did not lose their power and pierced the ground under Muramasa's feet. When Roger suddenly raised his left hand, Salander, who was watching the battle, noticed something was wrong and immediately raised Captain America's shield and attacked Roger. However, Roger had already prepared to be attacked from both sides. Although Salander's burst speed is not as fast as Muramasa's, it is much faster than the ninjas of the hand. But even so, when he was only 2 or 3 meters away from Roger, he was stopped by a spider web-like silk wall. Spider's nest. At the moment, when Salander rushed towards him, Roger raised his right hand and pointed his palm at Salander. Then, a strand of almost transparent silk shot out from the palm of his right hand, forming a spider web-like defensive wall on his right hand. Salander, holding a shield in his left hand, hit the spider's nest heavily and was blocked by the spider's nest. Although it was the first time for Roger to use the spider's nest, he was very confident in the defensive power of the spider's nest. The spider's nest used by Doflamingo can easily block Luffy's punch. Although he is not Doflamingo, Salander is not Luffy. And in the current environment, Salander can't jump over the range of the spider's nest, even if she wants to. The silk threads of the spider's nest connect the wall and the ground of the passage, sealing the entire passage. Unless Salander can break the wall or the ground, he can only watch Roger deal with Muramasa on the other side of the spider's nest. After resolving Salander's attack, Roger once again set his sights on Muramasa. At this time, Muramasa no longer had the style of a hermit. The white kimono on his body was dyed bright red by the blood flowing out of his body. What's more troublesome is that the leaf rake-like rogue line mailed him to death. From the moment the rogue line penetrated Muramasa's body, Muramasa was doomed to death. Now Roger only needs to move his fingers slightly, and the rogue line on Muramasa's body can completely dismember him. But Roger didn't do this. Muramasa was doomed to die, but letting him die like this was not in line with Roger's character of making the best use of everything. He stretched out his right hand and shot out dozens of nearly transparent silk threads from his fingers and palm. Under his control, these silk threads were like poisonous snakes wrapped around Muramasa, who was nailed to death. Parasitic line. In just 1 or 2 seconds, Roger completed the use of the parasitic line, turning Muramasa into a puppet that he could control. Only then did he remove the rogue line on his left hand. Although the tactics were formulated by himself, Roger himself did not expect that the tactics would go so smoothly. Of course, this is also inseparable from the upgrade of the fruit and Muramasa's arrogance. If the fruit had not been upgraded, he would not have been able to perform moves such as the foot shaving line and the rogue line without practice. If Muramasa was not so arrogant and did not choose to face him alone, he would not have been able to complete the tactical arrangement so quickly. After being possessed by the parasitic line, Muramasa did not give up resistance. But he soon found that his resistance was meaningless. These parasitic lines wrapped around him completely deprived him of control over his body. Now he can't even loosen his right hand and throw away the samurai sword, let alone resist the control of the parasitic line. After confirming that he had completely lost control of his body, Muramasa smiled bitterly. It's over. Everything is over. As an old monster who has lived for hundreds of years, it is impossible for him not to imagine what will happen next. After controlling Muramasa to come to his side, Roger lifted the spider's nest that blocks Salander. The spider's nest was lifted, but Salander, holding Captain America's shield, not only did not attack Roger, but silently stepped back a few steps. Although he didn't know what Roger did to Muramasa, he was sure that Muramasa had become Roger's puppet. Don Quixote. When Salander heard this name for the first time, he didn't take it to heart. Even after hearing about Roger's battle with the hand ninja from Ronald, he still didn't take Roger to heart. In his opinion, Roger was nothing more than a guy who had mastered some unknown special abilities and then didn't know how high the sky was and how deep the earth was. But now, he realized how wrong his previous judgment was. Use Ronald as bait to find his secret base. Lure S.H.I.E.L.D. and the police to the factory and lure both sides into a war. He tied Captain America's shield to him, released the photos and videos he took to major news media, and used public opinion pressure to force S.H.I.E.L.D. to deal with the hand with all its strength. When S.H.I.E.L.D. launched the attack, he broke into the building to carry out the decapitation operation. Before the two sides even met, he had already planned everything and personally promoted every link of the plan. In the years since escaping from Kunlun, Salander has not encountered opponents with deeper scheming. But those people, without exception, are famous for their reputation. And this guy who claims to be the young master of the Don Quixote family, according to Ronald, is only in his early 20s. Before we take action, I have a question. I wonder if you are willing to answer it. The hand should have no grudges against you. Why do you have to make things difficult for the hand? Looking at Roger in wire armor, Salander asked the doubts in his heart. He would not believe Ronald's statement. How could someone who can have such a scheming plan make things difficult for the hand for a so-called subordinate? Nothing special, just someone offered money to buy the heads of 5 fingers of your hand. And they are willing to pay. Roger was not interested in revealing the existence of the system to Salander, so he made up a reason. I see. After hearing Roger's explanation, Salander smiled. Then, under Roger's gaze, he turned around and ran without any hesitation. It's too late to leave. Salander had just taken a few steps when Muramasa, who was controlled by the parasitic line, came behind him like a ghost, and the samurai sword in his hand directly chopped Salander's back. Chapter 41. Salander's Magic. Ding. Just when the samurai sword was about to hit Salander, Salander showed agility that was not in line with his body size. He turned around suddenly and blocked the sword with the Captain America shield in his hand. Although Muramasa's samurai sword was a rare fine product, it was still far inferior to the Captain America shield made of vibranium. Not to mention cutting through Captain America's shield, Muramasa's samurai sword didn't even scratch the paint on the shield. After blocking Muramasa's fierce sword, Salander took a few steps back without any hesitation. Then, he looked at Muramasa, who had become a puppet, with a vigilant face. Muramasa's speed just now. Looking at Muramasa, who was still dripping with blood, Salander couldn't help but frown. Although he and Muramasa had some ideological differences, no matter what, they were companions who defected from Kunlun together and had known each other for hundreds of years. In a way, they were the people who knew each other best. But now, they should have joined forces to attack Roger, but they became enemies facing each other with swords. What shocked Salander even more was that Muramasa, who was already injured, not only did not become weak, but instead showed a faster speed and stronger strength. If Muramasa had not been controlled by the parasitic line, he would not have been able to show his speed and strength at this time. Humans, no, it should be said, that flesh and blood creatures, all have the instinct of self-protection. The speed and strength that flesh and blood creatures usually show are restricted strength without damaging their own bodies. However, after being controlled by the parasitic line, Roger can directly ignore these instincts of the puppet. Anyway, it's just a puppet. It's broken. It's no big deal. So in this case, he can squeeze the power of the puppet as much as possible, and even let the puppet exert power that does not belong to them at all. Forcibly controlling the target's body is strictly not an accurate description of the parasitic line. A more accurate statement should be that the target is forcibly controlled to exert the strongest power regardless of everything. And these powers exerted are not only limited to suppressing the target's own physical strength, but also include the power brought by the parasitic line. To give a very simple example, Muramasa cannot fly under normal circumstances. But under the control of the parasitic line, Muramasa can do this. As for ignoring the damage to the body and forcibly bursting out stronger power, it is only part of the ability of the parasitic line. Just when Salander was still thinking about how to deal with Muramasa, who had become the enemy's puppet, Roger controlled Muramasa to take the initiative to attack. The gunshots and explosions coming from downstairs have become more and more obvious. It won't be long before the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. can break through the blockade of the Hand Ninja and come to this floor. Therefore, he needs to get rid of Salander before the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. arrive and squeeze out what he needs from them. In a blink of an eye, Muramasa attacked Salander again, and the samurai sword in his hand kept attacking Salander. Ding, ding, ding. The sound of the samurai sword and the vibranium shield colliding continued to sound. Relying on the shield that originally belonged to Captain America, Salander easily blocked all of Muramasa's attacks. But before he had time to rejoice, Roger's attack came in front of him. It is obviously not the most efficient method to only let the puppet attack the enemy. When Muramasa faced Salander head on, Roger, who was at the back of the battlefield, fired bullets at Salander. When Roger also took action himself, Salander's situation suddenly became a little worse. He had to be careful of Muramasa's close combat attack, and also beware of Roger's cold gun from a distance. He was soon forced into the corner of the passage by the joint attack of Muramasa and Roger. No, this can't go on. According to the current situation, it won't be long before he will die in the hands of Muramasa and Roger. After thinking of this, Salander's face showed a hint of fierceness. Then, he took out a dagger from his waist and cut his chest directly. What is this? Seeing Salander suddenly take out a dagger to hurt himself, Roger instinctively realized that something was wrong and immediately controlled Muramasa to retreat. But Salander didn't give him such a chance. Salander's right hand instantly wiped across his chest, making his right hand covered with blood, while muttering something. In an instant, strange black mist emerged from Salander's body. As soon as these smoke-like black mists appeared, they entangled Muramasa's hands like a school of piranhas in the Amazon River. Although Roger controlled Muramasa to retreat at the first time, Muramasa's hands were still swallowed up by these black mists, leaving no bones. The black mist not only swallowed Muramasa's hands, but also corroded the samurai sword in Muramasa's hand, leaving holes of varying sizes. Then, it turned into a pile of iron blocks. Is this the magic of the hand? As a ninja killer group that worships the original demon beast, it is not surprising that the hand controls some unknown magic. But what Roger did not expect was that the black mists summoned by Salander would be so overbearing. Muramasa, who lost his arms, returned to Roger's side, his face full of pain, and made painful whimpers. After the parasitic thread attached to Muramasa, Roger sewed Muramasa's mouth with silk thread. He didn't like his puppets to yell during the battle, so he avoided this problem in advance. Without his arms and weapons, Muramasa had lost most of his combat power. Although Roger could still use him as a meat shield, Muramasa would definitely not live long. In this case, after just 1 or 2 seconds of thinking, Roger made a decision. With a slight hook of his right hand, Muramasa's legs were completely cut off by the silk thread, and the whole person fell to the ground. After confirming that Muramasa could not escape, he removed the parasitic thread and looked at Salander, who was entangled in the black fog, with cold eyes. Salander's current situation can be said to be very good or very bad. The good thing is that the black fog permeated around his body, providing him with a reliable defensive shield. The bad thing is that his current state is a little wrong. Behind Salander, Roger saw a strange beast phantom. This beast is a bit like a large cat, like a lion or tiger, but it has several sharp horns like curved sheep horns. Is this the devil beast? Although Roger knew that the hand worshipped the demon beast, He never knew what this beast looked like. In fact, not only did he not know, but most of the hand ninjas also did not know. What these hand ninjas usually worshipped was just an abstract symbol and statue. Moreover, for a demon-like beast, it is not difficult to change its appearance. P.S. Thank you for the reward from Emozuyan. Thank you for your support. It seems that the monthly tickets are doubled now. If you have extra monthly tickets, you might as well give a few tickets to The Apprentice. Chapter 42 Torture. At this time, Salander was covered in black fog, gasping for breath, with bloodshot eyes. However, Roger's attention was not on Salander, but on the vibranium shield in his hand. Judging from the performance of the black fog just now, these strange black fogs have extremely strong corrosive ability. Muramasa's hands and samurai sword are good examples. But the vibranium shield in Salander's hand did not show any corrosion. Just looking at the shield, Roger could not be sure for the time being whether this was the result of Salander's deliberate control or the shield was not afraid of the corrosive effect of the black fog. In order to confirm this, he raised his right hand and condensed a silk dagger. Then, he threw the silk dagger directly at Salander. Facing the silk dagger flying at high speed, Salander did not dodge or avoid it. He had no intention of dodging or raising his shield. In just a blink of an eye, the silk dagger came in front of Salander. Just as the silk dagger was about to pierce Salander's chest, the black mist wrapped around him surged up quickly, swallowing the silk dagger whole like a poisonous snake. The moment the black mist swallowed the silk dagger, Roger lost his sense of the silk dagger. However, the next second, he sensed the existence of the silk dagger again. The dagger condensed from the silk thread of the thread fruit passed through the black mist and pierced Salander's chest. It was not completely corroded, so it seemed that things would be much simpler. Roger was a little worried that the silk thread of the thread fruit could not resist the corrosion of the black mist, but it turned out that he was overthinking. Although the dagger inserted into Salander's chest had some cracks, it still remained generally intact and did not completely shatter like Muramasa's samurai sword. If that was the case, Roger did not hesitate at all and directly condensed the thread knife and attacked Salander. The silk dagger could resist the swallowing of the black mist, so the thread knife and thread armor could certainly resist the corrosion of the black mist. When Roger attacked Salander with the wire knife, Salander pulled out the dagger on his chest, holding the escape in his left hand and rushing towards Roger with the dagger in his right hand. It must be said that people with buffs are more arrogant. Salander, who was determined to escape just now, not only lost his intention to escape after casting this strange magic, but also took the initiative to attack Roger. Of course, it is also possible that Salander saw that Muramasa had been destroyed by Roger and felt that he was good again. Ding. In just a blink of an eye, Roger and Salander were entangled together. I don't know if it's his illusion, but Roger always feels that Salander is stronger now than last night. Strength, speed, reaction have all been significantly enhanced. Roger's close combat level is not as good as Salander's, let alone Salander with the buff. Not long after, he was beaten back by Salander. Just as Salander tried to kill Roger in one go, more than a dozen samurai swords made of silk thread stabbed into his back, and the tips of the swords pierced through his chest like bamboo shoots. Success. Roger was very clear about his current level of close combat. From the beginning, he did not expect to kill Salander with close combat. The reason why he rushed up with the wire knife was nothing more than to lure Salander out of the corner and create an opportunity for backstab. Use yourself as bait to attract Salander's attention. At the same time, control the silk threads from the other side of the passage to Salander's back. Finally, let these silk threads condense into wire knives and backstab Salander. If Salander stayed in the corner, Roger would not have the opportunity to backstab him. So he could only use himself as bait to lure Salander out. Although he didn't know what kind of magic Salander cast, judging from Salander's current state, this magic had affected her sanity to some extent. Normal magic will not make people gasp for air, nor will it make the eyes of the caster turn blood red. Salander's current appearance is like he has been injected with a large amount of stimulants and adrenaline at the same time. In this state, he is not cautious at first glance. Salander, who was stabbed by more than 10 wire knives, still did not die and even wanted to continue to attack Roger. but before he could raise his hand, the wire knife in Roger's hand cut across his neck. Beheaded. Salander's head flew high, then fell heavily to the floor, rolling back several times. Plop. The headless body fell in front of Roger. The blood dyed the ground red. After dealing with Salander, Roger did not waste any time and quickly came to Muramasa, whose limbs were broken. Muramasa would die from excessive bleeding, even if he did not finish him off. But before Muramasa went to hell to report, he still had some questions to ask Muramasa. Seeing Muramasa, who had no ability to resist, Roger squatted down, and thin threads emerged from the wire armor. Under his control, these thin threads came to Muramasa's broken limbs, and began to sew up the wounds. For Muramasa now, it didn't matter whether the wounds were sutured or not. But for Roger, it was very important. If he didn't help Muramasa sew up the wounds, it wouldn't be long before Muramasa died of excessive blood loss. Although he was not a professional doctor, Muramasa now obviously had no right to refuse him. Not long after, the wounds on Muramasa's limbs were sutured. After doing all this, Roger said to Muramasa, who almost fainted from the pain, "I only ask you 2 questions. If you cooperate obediently, I can make your death easier." As soon as Roger finished speaking, Muramasa looked at him with a look like an idiot. "You made me like this, and you still expect me to answer your questions? You don't need to look at me like that. You will definitely answer my questions obediently." After saying that, Roger raised his left hand, and a thin line that was not much thicker than a hair appeared in front of Muramasa. Under Muramasa's gaze, these thin lines flew to his mouth, nostrils, eyes, and ears. Then, they entered his body from these locations little by little. 2 questions. First, where are the gambling apprentice and Alexandra? Second, your overseas bank and private bank account and password. When the thin line just entered his body, Muramasa still held on hard, without any intention of answering Roger. But when Roger controlled the thin line to move in his body, he squirmed crazily without his limbs, widened his eyes, and let out a cruel cry. A minute later, after getting the information he wanted from Muramasa, he controlled the thin line to crush Muramasa's heart, ending Muramasa's long life. Bounty mission: kill the 5 fingers of the guild. Mission reward: 30 million berries, the door-to-door fruit. Mission progress: 3/5. Chapter 43, Factions in the Hand. As he guessed, Botu and Alexandra were not in the building, but in other bases of the Hand. After taking a look at Muramasa and Salander, who were completely dead, Roger went to the window without hesitation. Although there were still many hand ninjas in the building, this had nothing to do with him. The only people he wanted to kill were the 5 fingers of the Hand. As for those ninjas, they were just incidental. After shattering the window glass, he shot silk threads at the building opposite and swung out. Bang 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 bang. Under the shooting of the shield agents, he came to the building opposite. Then, he started to move quickly like a swing again. However, he had not swung far when he was spotted by the shield quinjet. Obviously, shield did not intend to let him leave easily this time. Although he was followed by a quinjet, he was not too worried about the problem of evacuation. If it was in other places, being spotted by a quinjet would indeed be a big trouble. But here, he didn't need to worry about this problem at all. The reason is simple: this is New York. Although this world is a little different from the Marvel world in his memory, there are some things that SHIELD would never dare to do, no matter which world it is in. For example, causing a large number of civilian casualties in Manhattan, New York. This kind of thing, the Snake SHIELD dares to do, but SHIELD absolutely dares not. As long as SHIELD is still named as an official agency, as long as SHIELD still claims to be an organization that maintains world peace, SHIELD will never dare to cause a large number of civilian casualties in New York. Especially now that SHIELD is facing public pressure. Roger ignored the quinjet behind him and continued to move at a high speed like Spider-Man. After arriving at a densely populated neighborhood, he landed on the street under the gaze of pedestrians. Then, he got into a sewer. Although he hated sewers, entering the sewer was now the best way to get rid of the quinjet. After walking in this maze-like sewer network for more than half an hour, he appeared in a small alley. After confirming that there were no pedestrians around, he removed the wire armor, came to the side of the road, and stopped a taxi. After giving the driver an address in Queens, he took out his phone and started logging into Miramasa's bank accounts. It must be said that those who make money in a shady way have more deposits. Compared with Professor Lizard, who only has more than $2 million in deposits, Miramis's deposits are much more, and it has reached the point where he has to use small goals as units. After confirming Miramis's deposits, he did not log into the Wealth Freedom website as before. He was not worried about handing over several million dollars to this website to launder them. But after the amount became more than $100 million, he was a little worried. After thinking for a few seconds, he temporarily gave up the idea of using Miramis's deposits. Miramis is dead, and now he is the only one who knows the account and password. So to a certain extent, these bank accounts are already his accounts. In this case, of course, there is no need to consider dealing with the deposits immediately. He is not worried that S.H.I.E.L.D. will find out Miramis's overseas accounts and personal accounts. These accounts of Miramis are all overseas accounts, and it is not known what identity he opened them with. S.H.I.E.L.D. is not really a god, but there are so many things they can't find out. Not to mention the far ones, they didn't even find out the Hydra hidden inside them. If they could really find out everything, there would be no terrorist organizations in this world, and they wouldn't need to rely on top spies like Black Widow to collect intelligence by relying on Beauty, a freight terminal in Queens. Is there still no news about the three of them? Boto, who was wearing a black suit, looked at the news report in front of him and asked calmly. The news broadcast was the scene of S.H.I.E.L.D. attacking the building. Before the action, S.H.I.E.L.D. had done a good job of clearing the scene. But it was still not enough to hide it from the news media who were afraid of chaos in the world. Not long after S.H.I.E.L.D. launched the attack, those journalists gathered like sharks smelling blood. Although these reporters couldn't get too close to the building, it didn't affect their reporting. No. S.H.I.E.L.D. should have blocked the signal, and we didn't receive any news from the headquarters. Sitting not far from Boto was Alexandra, who was wearing a black suit. It seems that this time, the three of them are in danger. Boto still had that calm tone, as if the building that S.H.I.E.L.D. was attacking was not the headquarters of the Hand. Although the 5 fingers of the Hand were all Kunlun traitors, they did not share honor and disgrace as the outside world imagined. Where there are people, there are rivers and lakes. Especially in a killer organization like the Hand that worships the devil. In the Hand, there can be roughly 3 factions. The first is the faction composed of Salander and Muramasa. The second is the faction composed of Boto and Alexandra. As for Mrs. Gao, she is a neutral faction that does not offend either side. This is also the main reason why Roger can meet Salander and Muramasa at the same time in the building. I have lived for so many years, and it is not a loss to die now. If Boto's tone is still calm, then Alexandra's tone is a naked mockery. Tell the people outside to step up their alert. I have a bad feeling. The guy who came out of the building may not be that simple. The guy that Boto was talking about was none other than Roger. Although his movements were quick, his figure was still captured by the news reports. If there were no news helicopters at the scene, it would not be just SHIELD's Quinjet following him. You worry too much. Although Muramasa and the others don't get along with us, they are not the kind of people who would betray their teammates. Besides, that guy is just one person. There's nothing to worry about. Unlike Boto, Alexandra didn't take Roger seriously at all. Not to mention Roger, even Salander and Muramasa, Alexandra didn't really care. In her opinion, Salander was a guy with strong limbs and a simple mind, while Muramasa was an old antique who clung to tradition. I hope so. Alexandra's words did not dispel the gambler's concerns. Outside the dock, Roger got off the taxi and took a look at the relatively busy dock. Then, he came to the alley near the dock and began his disguise. Wire armor. The white silk threads quickly formed the appearance of armor. Then, he sneaked into this seemingly ordinary dock. Chapter 44, The Suit Thug. From the environment, the dock in front of Roger is no different from other docks. Busy loading and unloading workers, piles of containers, trucks coming and going. But after entering this dock, he soon found something unusual. Compared with other docks, this dock is not large in scale, but the monitoring equipment in the dock is not less, far exceeding other docks. After sneaking in the dock for a while, Roger frowned. It is not yet 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and the light is very good. Most of the buildings in the dock are only 2 or 3 story warehouses and office buildings. Although there are containers to cover up the whereabouts, this is obviously not a good place to sneak. What's more troublesome is that there will be no people from SHIELD to help him share the firepower here. After thinking for a few seconds, he made a decision. The previous action has been completed by taking advantage of the situation, so the rest of the part will be directly attacked openly. If conditions permit, Roger doesn't mind hiding a little. But unfortunately, the current conditions do not allow him to do so. After making up his mind, Roger changed his sneaky way of moving forward, jumped onto the container, and ran towards the location provided by Muramasa. It was a warehouse at the innermost part of the dock, and it was the most important base of the Hand in Queens. Just as Roger jumped onto the container and rushed to the warehouse like a 100-meter sprinter, the hand ninja in charge of monitoring in the warehouse discovered his traces at the first time. Although the white wire armor was not conspicuous, it was also eye-catching enough. At this time, it was not only the hand ninja in the warehouse who discovered Roger. Even the workers who were loading and unloading goods also noticed his arrival. Under the gaze of these loading and unloading workers, Roger quickly came to the roof of the target warehouse and broke into the warehouse through the glass window. Before he landed, the hand ninja in the warehouse threw various shurikens and darts at him. Roger ignored these shurikens and darts that were scattered like flowers and shot silk threads towards the ceiling of the warehouse. Then, it fell on a cargo box in the warehouse. Wire knife. He stretched out his hands, and two white samurai swords formed by silk threads took shape in an instant, and he held them firmly in his hands. Until this moment, the hand ninjas were still frantically firing shurikens and darts at him. However, this was no threat to him wearing wire armor. How could the wire armor, that even bullets could not penetrate, be penetrated by these shurikens and darts? Roger, holding the knife in both hands, did not hesitate at all, and rushed directly to the area with the most hand ninjas. The mowing has begun. In close combat, there are two most frustrating enemies. One is an enemy with an incredibly fast speed that cannot be hit, no matter how hard you hit it. The other is an enemy whose defense is like a cheat, and it can't hurt, no matter how hard you hit it. Of course, in addition to the above two abilities, the real cheat will also have a bloodlock, which can't be killed, no matter how hard you hit it. Roger's speed at this time is not fast, and he does not have a bloodlock like an immortal body. But in the eyes of these hand ninjas, he is almost like an invincible cheat in his wire armor. Although their weapons hit Roger, they did not cause any damage to Roger except for some collision noises. They could not hurt Roger in the wire armor, but the wire knife in Roger's hand could easily take their lives. Roger's close combat ability was not weak to begin with. After killing countless hand ninjas, his close combat level has been significantly improved. His previous fighting style may have been a bit theoretical, but now, he is an out-and-out practical fighter. Hand up, knife down, hand up, knife down. After abandoning those fancy skills, his killing efficiency is getting higher and higher. In fact, when facing these hand ninjas, skills are far from being needed. Hand ninjas like simple and rough fighting methods. Coincidentally, Roger now also likes this method. So, a primitive and bloody killing started tacitly. While Roger and the hand ninjas were competing to see who was more fearless, in an office inside the warehouse, Botu and Alexandra were watching his fight through the surveillance screen. My premonition has come true. Botu turned his head and looked at Alexandra, saying without emotion, "Those ninjas are no match for him. Should I do it, or should I?" Alexandra's eyes remained on the surveillance screen. "Let me do it. I haven't encountered such an enemy for a long time." After saying that, Botu, who was dressed in a black suit, left the office directly and walked towards the area where Roger was fighting with the hand ninjas. When he arrived at the area where Roger was fighting with the hand ninjas, there were 5 or 6 fewer ninjas in front of Roger, and they turned into ashes and disappeared. With the appearance of Botu, the hand ninjas stopped besieging Roger and retreated more than 10 meters away. Don Quixote Flamingo? Botu did not attack Roger immediately and asked in a voice without any emotion. Although the hand is divided into 3 factions, they still exchange some basic information with each other. For example, when Salander returned to the headquarters building with Captain America's shield, Salander told Mrs. Gao and Botu the information she learned. Roger did not answer Botu's intention and pointed the wire knife in his right hand at Botu. Don't like to talk? It's okay, you will definitely speak. As he spoke, Botu took off his suit jacket and tie and threw them to a hand ninja next to him. Then, he stretched out his hands casually, without his instructions. When he spread his hands, the hand ninja next to him respectfully placed his samurai sword in his hands. Although they have different positions, Roger has to admit that Botu now has a style of a suit thug. Black trousers, black vest, white shirt, black leather shoes. With the British retro oily hair and the well-defined face, Botu has well interpreted what a suit thug is. With that sharp and arrogant look, even if he didn't get involved in the underworld, he would have no problem becoming an actor in Hollywood. He was handsome, but in Roger's eyes, he was just a dead man who could move. When Roger was looking at the gambler, who was also holding a knife with both hands, walked towards him slowly and danced a few knife flowers. The gambler's intention was very clear, that is, he wanted to have a fair one-on-one fight with Roger. However, Roger didn't have such an idea. When the gambler was only about 10 meters away from him, he released the wire knife in his left hand and raised his hand to shoot a bullet. Ding. For ordinary people, the bullet was no different from a bullet, but when it came in front of the gambler, he easily blocked it. Chapter 45. The heart of playing tactics is dirty. Using a knife to block bullets is fine. Although the bullets he shot out are not real bullets, their speed is not much slower than that of real bullets. More importantly, the bullets he fired now have the power comparable to that of a rifle. Although it is still a bit far from the power of Doflamingo, who can explode buildings with bullets, it is not easy for everyone to block it. Take Salander, who is also a traitor of Kunlun, for example. He can't block the bullets with a knife. The image of a thug in a suit, plus the scene of blocking the bullets with a samurai sword. Although Roger doesn't know whether Botu is stronger than Salander and others, in terms of pretentiousness and expressiveness, he is much stronger than Salander and Muramasa. In this case, let's shoot a few more. At this time, Botu was still surprised by the impact of the bullets, and a new bullet came in front of him. Without any hesitation, Botu immediately waved the samurai sword in his hand. Clang, clang, clang. Bullets were blocked one after another by him. At the same time, he quickly ran towards Roger, swinging his samurai sword tightly. A distance of 10 meters is nothing for a normal Botu. It only takes a blink of an eye to reach the enemy. But under the obstruction of the elastic line, his speed was much slower than usual. Even so, he only took 2 or 3 seconds. After reaching Roger, Botu did not hesitate at all. The samurai swords in both hands changed direction directly, from resisting the attack of the elastic line to attacking Roger. At this distance, it was not a good idea to continue to use the elastic line. However, Roger did not intend to fight with Botu with swordsmanship. He had seen the fighting ability of Botu and other Kunlun traitors in Salander and Muramasa. Roger was not interested in doing such a stupid thing as using one's own weaknesses to attack the enemy's strengths. At the moment when Botu's samurai sword attacked him, he retreated without thinking. It was not easy to close the distance, and Botu would not let him retreat easily, no matter what he said. Almost at the same time as Roger retreated, he immediately rushed forward to attack, and the samurai sword in his hand kept attacking Roger. Facing the attack of the Botu, Roger was not surprised at all. The moment the Botu picked up the samurai sword, he knew what the Botu was going to do. Especially after knowing that he could fire bullets, the Botu would not easily let him distance himself. However, the Botu would never have thought that Roger, who was retreating at this time, had already planned everything. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. After being forced to retreat more than 10 steps by the Botu's continuous attacks, Roger suddenly stopped and let the samurai sword in the Botu's hand cut his shoulders and neck. Parasitic line. Ding. The sharp samurai sword chopped on Roger's shoulders and neck without suspense and was blocked by the amazing defensive wire armor. At the moment when the samurai sword chopped on the wire armor, Roger's left hand controlled the parasitic line that had been prepared long ago. He did not choose to let the parasitic line possess the Botu. In this frequency of close combat, it is basically impossible to possess Botu. So the target he chose was Botu's subordinates, the hand ninjas who were watching their fight. While avoiding Botu's attack, he controlled the parasitic line to the 2 hand ninjas. However, He did not let the parasitic line possess him immediately, but silently waited for the opportunity. When he was forced to retreat more than 10 steps by Botu, and Botu's back appeared in front of the two hand ninjas who were about to be possessed by the parasitic line, he finally activated the effect of the parasitic line. In less than a second, the parasitic line completed the possession of the two hand ninjas. At the moment when Botu's samurai sword slashed the wire armor, the two hand ninjas came behind Botu like ghosts. The sharp samurai sword stabbed directly into Botu's back. Use Botu's subordinates to backstab Botu. This is Roger's plan. Although Botu couldn't see the situation behind him, he knew that two hand ninjas who had suddenly turned against him were stabbing him with samurai swords. Just as he was about to pull back the samurai sword that had stabbed the wire armor, the silk thread on the wire armor instantly entangled the samurai sword. He wanted to take back the sword that had stabbed the wire armor. This was a bit of a disdain for the wire armor. In any case, the wire armor was an original move developed by Roger himself. He knew better than anyone how to maximize the effect of the wire armor. The samurai sword was entangled by the silk thread on the wire armor, and the only way left for Botu was to resist the backstab or dodge. If Botu was just an ordinary person, he would not be able to dodge before the samurai sword stabbed his back. But he was not an ordinary person, but a traitor who had received orthodox education from Kunlun. His physical fitness and fighting skills were far beyond the reach of ordinary people. At the moment, when the samurai sword of the hand ninja was about to stab him in the back, an invisible and colorless energy burst out from Botu. This was not a superpower, but the key in Kunlun martial arts. For the American people, the energy of ki may be difficult to understand. But in the eyes of Roger, who has read the martial arts novels of the flower-growing family, the so-called ki of Kunlun is similar to the internal force and internal energy in martial arts novels. They are all a kind of energy that can strengthen oneself and can be released when needed. When the Botu burst out with ki, the backstab of the hand ninja against him could be declared a failure. The invisible and colorless ki with powerful energy hit the two hand ninjas like an attack wave generated by an explosion and bounced them away. At the moment, when the two traitors were bounced away, Roger removed the parasitic lines on their bodies and aimed his palm at the Botu's chest. Part of the impact of the ki also hit him. But compared with the two traitors, the impact he had to face was obviously much smaller. This was not because the Botu deliberately held back on him, but the result of biological instinct. Of course, this also had something to do with the fact that he was wearing wire armor now. For Botu, the biggest threat comes from the backstab from behind, so when he bursts out his ki, he will instinctively focus on the two ninjas behind him. Thus, he ignores Roger who is standing in front of him, but has been suppressed by him. That's right, when Botu came in front of him and started to attack, he did not fight back, which was also in his plan. Botu's burst of ki successfully resolved the backstab from behind. But at this moment, Roger began to fight back. People who play tactics are dirty. Roger did not deny this, so he would not give the achievement of killing Botu to the two traitors. Botu, who had just burst out his ki, had not reacted yet, and a finger-thick thread column shot out from his palm, exceeding the whip line. The white thread column struck Botu like lightning, and pierced his chest in an instant. P.S. Thank you for the reward from Mark Suyian. Thank you for your support by the way. Please collect, recommend, monthly, say this chapter, and comment. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 46, Winning Over. The Over Whip is very similar to the Super Strike Whip, but its power is much weaker than the Super Strike Whip, and its attack range is not as terrifying as the Super Strike Whip. The Super Strike Whip used by Doflamingo can cut a tall building in half in an instant, and its attack range can reach several kilometers. Although the Over Whip that Roger is using now is not as terrifying, it is more than enough to penetrate the flesh and blood of the Botu. Compared with the Super Strike Whip, the Over Whip is more flexible and can be swung like a real whip. Looking at the white line that completely penetrated his body, the Botu showed an incredible look. He never thought that Roger, who had been suppressed by him, would use a killing move as soon as he attacked. The bright red blood slowly flowed out along the white line, and the Botu tried to grab the white line that penetrated his body with his hand. However, as soon as he raised his right hand, Roger swung the white line. Swish! The white line passed through his body like a sharp blade, splitting his body in two. Until this moment, Botu still couldn't accept the fact in front of him, and his face was full of disbelief. Not only Botu couldn't accept this fact, but the hand ninjas standing aside and watching also couldn't believe what they saw. Botu was one of the 5 fingers of the hand, and one of the undisputed leaders of the hand. In the eyes of these hand ninjas, Botu and Alexandra and others meant absolute strength and power. But now, Botu, who had a very high status in their hearts, died just like that. He died so simply and so ironically. Roger was in no mood to care about what those hand ninjas were thinking. After killing Botu with a whip line, he didn't even check the progress of the bounty mission. He directly removed the white line column in his hand and ran towards the direction where Botu had just appeared. Although Botu was dead, Alexandra was still there. According to the information provided by Muramasa, Botu and Alexandra were both in this warehouse. Although he had not seen any trace of Alexandra, he was sure that Alexandra was in the warehouse at this time. After seeing Roger rush out of the encirclement of the hand ninjas without looking back, Alexandra immediately realized his intention. However, unlike what Roger imagined, after witnessing the death of Botu, Alexandra not only did not intend to leave the warehouse, but also took the initiative to come to the microphone of the monitoring station and said in a charming voice, "I'll wait for you in the warehouse office." After telling Roger her location, Alexandra continued, "Don't stop him, let him come." After hearing this, the hand ninjas who were chasing Roger stopped and put away their weapons. In terms of obeying orders, the hand ninjas used practical actions to prove what it means to obey orders. In this regard, even the US military is not as good as them. There are still some soldiers in the army who do not obey the orders of the military commanders, but in the hand, this situation will never happen. Not to mention that Alexandra just told them not to stop Roger. Even if Alexandra asked these hand ninjas to commit suicide, they would not hesitate at all. From this perspective, the hand ninjas can be regarded as a model of workers. Warehouse office. You are here. Sit down. When Roger came to the office, Alexandra, who was sitting on the sofa, immediately stood up and said in the seductive voice of a mature woman. Roger glanced at Alexandra, who was wearing a black women's suit, came to her, and sat on the sofa opposite her. "Nice to meet you, I'm Alexandra." After saying that, Alexandra stretched out her right hand towards Roger. Roger had no intention of shaking hands with Alexandra, and even had no intention of speaking. Although he didn't know what Alexandra was planning, from the current situation, Alexandra seemed to have the confidence to defeat him. "Should I call you young master like your men do, or should I call you Doflamingo?" Alexandra retracted her right hand, put her legs together, and sat down gracefully. If Alexandra was not wearing a suit and trousers, but a short skirt and black stockings, she would look like a CEO's assistant. And she is a personal assistant with a tall and attractive figure and a pretty face, which makes male creatures easily fantasize about her. "Just call me Doflamingo." Looking at Alexandra in front of him, Roger's brain was working frantically, thinking about Alexandra's purpose. "Then can I call you Dova? It will seem more intimate." Alexandra continued, and gently lifted her hair with her hand. "Whatever you want." Roger's tone was as calm as ever. "Then I'll call you Dova," Alexandra replied with a smile, and then continued, "Dova, why do you want to go against the hand? Is it because Botu or Muramasa have offended you, or did the hand accidentally cause you trouble before? No need to be polite, just tell me, what are you going to do?" Roger had no interest in explaining why he wanted to take action against the hand. Based on the attitude shown by Alexandra, he roughly guessed something. "Okay, I'll be frank then. The 5 fingers of the hand, Botu died in your hands, and Muramasa and Salanda, if nothing unexpected happened, should also have died. Even if the 3 of them didn't die, they couldn't continue to lead the hand after falling into the hands of S.H.I.E.L.D. New York is big, and the hand is also big. If I'm the only one in charge of the hand, it would be a bit too much trouble. If you don't mind, I can give you half of the hand and let you become the new finger of the hand. You've already avenged your revenge. Why not give yourself some rewards? The hand is a good reward. While speaking, Alexandra kept that charming posture. Of course, if you want to become the only master of the hand, it's not impossible. Alexandra didn't continue to say the rest. However, if a normal man saw her current posture and expression, it would not be difficult to guess what she said next. Give the hand to me. As expected of one of the 5 fingers of the hand, your courage is indeed far beyond that of ordinary people. Roger replied with a smile. Just as he guessed, Alexandra was really after him. Or rather, she was attracted by his fighting ability. Not to mention the fact that he could easily kill a ninja from the hero society. After all, there were many people who could do that. If he guessed correctly, the reason why Alexandra decided to win him over was because he showed strength that was even better than that of a gambler. Chapter 47 Interrogation. You are very sincere. To be honest, I'm a little moved. Roger looked at Alexandra and said calmly. After hearing his answer, the smile on Alexandra's face became more obvious. But before she could speak, Roger continued, there is a saying that I don't know if you have heard of. That is, the more beautiful a woman is, the more likely she is to lie. Alexandra was stunned for a moment, but her expression did not change at all. She continued to lift her hair with a charming gesture and said slowly, do you think I'm beautiful? What is a smart person? This is it. Alexandra naturally shifted the focus of the topic from lying to beauty, and her face did not change. She even showed a very natural shyness and secret joy. If Roger was just an ordinary 19-year-old man, he would be more or less moved when he saw Alexandra, a sexy mature woman with mature feminine charm, showing this shy look. But Alexandra would never have thought that, after seeing her performance, that was enough to win an Oscar. Roger not only did not feel any heartbeat, but instead wanted to laugh a little. In the time traveler training class, their instructors warned them more than once not to let the impulse of the lower body affect their rationality. Of course, after this warning was circulated several times, it became women will only affect the speed of my sword drawing. Whether it is your figure, appearance, or temperament, you perfectly meet the definition of the word beautiful for adult men. As long as the men with normal sexual orientation, they should agree with me. Roger's tone was still so calm, as if he was a monk who had seen through the world. Then don't you want to have something with me? Alexandra wrapped her golden hair around her fingers, and looked at him with suggestive eyes. Although Roger has not removed the wire armor until now, but the sound of his voice has revealed that he is not very old. Alexandra can even conclude that Roger's age will definitely not exceed 25. As an old monster who has lived for hundreds of years, Alexandra knows very well what men of this age are thinking, and also knows very well how to tease men of this age. In fact, in her past years, there were dozens of little boys who fell in love with her. If I say I don't want to, I'd be a bit hypocritical. As he spoke, Roger stood up and walked to Alexandra's side step by step, stretching his right hand towards Alexandra's well-maintained face. He was really a guy pretending to be mature. The smile on Alexandra's face became more and more intense. However, just as his right hand was about to touch her face, Roger's right hand suddenly changed direction, grabbed Alexandra's neck like lightning, and lifted her up. Alexandra was about 1.7 meters tall, only about 10 centimeters taller than Roger. But because of her high heels, Alexandra looked only a few centimeters shorter than him. Just as he lifted Alexandra up, Alexandra's straight and slender right leg kicked him hard. And the direction of the kick was the most painful part of a man. Alexandra's counterattack was very fast. But in front of Roger, who was wearing wire armor, she would not have any chance. Almost at the moment, when Alexandra kicked out her right leg, a large number of silk threads emerged from the wire armor. These silk threads, which seemed to have life, quickly wrapped around Alexandra's right leg. Then, they spread to her body, completely binding her legs and hands. I do want to do something with you. But it's not what you think. After completely tying up Alexandra with silk threads, Roger loosened his right hand and let her fall onto the sofa. Don't count on the ninjas outside. You should know that they will never be able to save you in time. Just as Alexandra was about to shout for help, Roger spoke first, and then sat on the table in front of the sofa. As long as you answer 3 questions for me, I can consider letting you go. While speaking, Roger raised his right hand, letting white silk threads float in his hand, like willow leaves dancing in the wind. Okay. But I hope you can keep your promise. Alexandra was silent for a few seconds, and then slowly said. But this time, her tone was no longer seductive, and her eyes were no longer so affectionate, but she looked like she wanted to eat Roger. Very good. I like dealing with smart people, without wasting too much energy. Roger retracted the dancing silk thread in his right hand and continued. The first question, your overseas bank and private bank account passwords? Interrogation is a skill. It is the most unwise to ask the most important question right at the beginning. Starting with some slightly important, but not particularly important questions is conducive to breaking the psychological defense of the interrogated person. Alexandra did not answer Roger immediately, and Roger did not urge her. After a few tens of seconds of silence, Alexandra said a few bank account numbers and passwords. When Alexandra said the bank account numbers and passwords, Roger immediately logged in with his mobile phone to check. Although he could not be sure whether Alexandra would tell him all the bank account numbers and passwords, he did not need to worry about this problem with Miramasa as the baseline. Alexandra and Miramasa were both 5 fingers of the hand, and even if there was a difference in the amount of deposits between them, it would not be too far. So with Miramasa's small goal as a baseline, he could roughly judge whether Alexandra was lying. After confirming that there was no problem with the account and password Alexandra gave, and that the amount of deposits was also in small goals, he nodded with satisfaction. This is a good start. I hope everyone can maintain this pleasant cooperation in the future. The second question is, where is the dragon bone of the hand, and how to use it? Compared with personal deposits, the question of dragon bones is obviously more important. But compared with his own life, the secret of dragon bones is nothing. However, unlike the first question, Roger has no way to verify whether Alexandra's answer is true. When Alexandra finished speaking, he deliberately remained silent for more than 10 seconds, pretending to be thinking. Then, he continued, the third question, how do you control those ninjas? After hearing this question, Alexandra's face became extremely ugly. If personal deposits and dragon bones are still things that can be abandoned, then the method of controlling ninjas is the most important secret of the hand and the foundation of the hand. The importance of this secret to the hand is no less than the nuclear missile launch code of a country. P.S. Thank you Alex Bingfeng for the reward. Thank you for your support. Please collect and recommend. Chapter 48 Mall Opening. After a silence of almost a minute, Alexandra finally spoke up. You didn't intend to let me go from the beginning, right? Alexandra was not stupid. If Roger's first 2 questions were just to get extra spoils, then when he asked the third question, Alexandra completely reacted. I can consider letting you go. Alexandra remembered what Roger said before asking the question. That's right, I didn't intend to let you go from the beginning. Roger did not deny it and said calmly. Then why should I continue to cooperate with you? Anyway, I will die anyway. I would rather die with this secret. Alexandra looked at Roger viciously. Let me put it this way, if you tell me how to control those ninjas, I can let you die a little easier. You have lived for so many years, you should know that death is not the most painful thing. Especially since you are a woman. Roger did not continue to speak. Alexandra has lived for hundreds of years, and is also one of the 5 fingers of the killer group hand. There are some things that she knows better than Roger. It's not a shame for Botu and Miramasa to die at the hands of someone like you. You win. The hand will be yours from now on. After a bitter smile, Alexandra told Roger the secret method of controlling the hand ninjas without reservation. Before I die, can I make a small request? Alexandra looked at Roger sitting on the table and asked in a pleading tone. Tell me, what is your request? I don't want to die with blood all over my face. If possible, I hope I can die in the same way I'm now. Alexandra's request was meaningless to Roger. But Alexandra was a woman, and a woman who paid great attention to her appearance. In this case, no problem. As soon as the voice fell, Roger grabbed Alexandra's neck with his right hand, and then suddenly exerted force. Crack. Roger broke Alexandra's neck expressionlessly. Before his right hand let go of Alexandra's neck, the system prompt sounded in his mind. Unlike the capture mission, the kill mission does not require a choice of whether to submit. As long as all the targets are dead, the system will determine that the mission is completed. Bounty mission: kill the 5 fingers of the guild. Mission reward: 30 million berries. Door-to-door fruit. Mission status: completed. Mission reward sent. After hearing the system prompt, Roger turned on the system, and a virtual holographic screen that only he could see appeared in front of him. Devil fruit, secondary, door-to-door fruit LV1. Berry. 35 million. Bounty. 5 million berries. In addition to the changes in the information in these 3 columns, the mall that has been under maintenance since he crossed over has finally opened. Mall, open for business. Inventory update time unknown. The mall is open, which is good news. But after seeing the unknown update time at the back, Roger sighed helplessly. The goods in the mall are not all put on the shelves at once. According to the original setting, the mall will update its inventory once a month. The reason for this setting is that those programmers who like plaid shirts believe that it is impossible for Roger and other travelers to get enough berries in a short time. So instead of putting all the goods on the shelves at once, it is better to update them one by one. This will also help maintain the expectations of Roger and other travelers for the mall, making them more motivated to carry out bounty missions. Of course, this is just the wishful thinking of those programmers. Roger and other first-line travelers will never agree with this view. Although he didn't know when the next inventory update of the mall would be, Roger opened the mall as soon as possible and browsed the goods that had been put on the shelves. Hacky, moves, devil fruits, weapons, ships, sundries. The goods in the mall are divided into 6 categories. But this does not mean that all these 6 categories of goods will be in the mall. Whether the devil fruit or fighting moves you want will appear in the mall is a metaphysics of looking at your face. In the first phase of the goods provided by the mall, there are only 4 types of goods on the shelves. Hacky, armament hacky, 28 million berries. Moves, 6 styles shave, 10 million berries. Moves, 6 styles moonstep, 10 million berries. Moves, 6 styles iron block, 10 million berries. Weapons, Great Blade 21 works Nidakitetsu, 20 million berries. Devil fruit, animal type elephant fruit, 100 million berries. There are only 6 products on the shelves in the mall, and only 3 of them can interest Roger. Weapons and devil fruits can be ruled out first. He is not a swordsman, and Nidakitetsu has no temptation for him. As for the elephant fruit, let alone. It's not that he can't accept the animal type devil fruit, but the elephant fruit is not in his plan. Although the price of the elephant fruit is the lowest price among the devil fruits, 100 million berries, he still can't get interested. Should I choose armament hacky? Or choose the 3-6 style moves? Roger began to struggle. Shaving, moonstep, and iron block are all good moves. Armament hacky is an ability with a very high upper limit. He only has 35 million berries now, and can only choose between hacky and 6 styles. Although the items that he did not buy may be updated next time. But the problem is that he does not know when the next inventory update of the mall will be. It may be tomorrow, it may be next month, or even a year later. If he missed this time, he did not know when he would see armament hacky in these 3-6 styles appear in the mall again. After thinking for more than a minute, he finally made a decision. Hacky, armament hacky, 28 million berries. Do you want to buy it? Roger did not hesitate and chose to buy it. When he pressed the purchase button, his berries increased from 35 million berries to 7 million berries. At the same time, the hacky column changed from nothing to armament hacky. Hacky, armament hacky LV1. Like the fruit level, hacky is also divided into 5 levels by the system. After purchasing armament hacky, the system sent the training method and usage method of armament hacky to his mind. After shutting down the system, Roger raised his right hand and began to use his hacky according to the information in his mind. He tried to wrap his armament hacky around his right hand. Then, it failed without any suspense. Watching the hacky on the wire armor flash by, he quickly realized the problem. After removing the wire armor covering his right hand, he used hacky again. Under his gaze, his right hand quickly turned into a steel like black. Armament hacky hardening. Chapter 49. Everything can be discussed. Hardening. It is the most common and basic way to use armament haki. As long as you have learned armament haki, there is no one who cannot harden. The only difference is the strength, quantity, and coverage. Although Roger's armament haki is only LV1 now, there is no problem in using it to strengthen the limbs and body. Looking at his purple-black right fist, he nodded with satisfaction. Although he looked down on black people, he had no dissatisfaction with the color black. In fact, he liked black. For example, black silk. What he hated was the shameless race that only used skin color to make a fuss and demanded different treatment all over the world, as if the whole world owed them. After adapting to the use of armament haki, he lifted the hardening of his right hand and let the wire armor cover his right hand again. The second bounty mission was completed, and the armament haki was also obtained. Today is indeed a good day. However, he did not plan to leave here immediately. Although Alexandra was dead, he had not received all his rewards. When all 5 fingers of Alexandra died, the hand lost all its leaders. Although the hand is not a good organization, it is a very useful organization. After recalling the secret method that Alexandra had just told him, he took off the ordinary ring from Alexandra's hand. The reason why the ninjas of the hand are so devoted to Alexandra and the other 5 fingers. In addition to the fact that the 5 of them are the founders of the hand, there is another very important reason. That is the original demon beast. Or in other words, some magic provided by the beast. Faith, magic, and brainwashing. This is the main reason why the ninjas of the hand are loyal to Alexandra and others. The ring that Roger just took from Alexandra is a ring with a constant magic effect. Using specific words to activate the magic on the ring, he can make these ninjas of the hand as obedient as hounds. After figuring out how to use this ring in the office, he took the ring and left the office. Outside the door of the office, a large number of hand ninjas gathered. After quietly activating the magic on the ring, he said to the hand ninjas, "From now on, the hand no longer has 5 fingers, and I'm your only master." Under the power of magic, the hand ninjas did not think there was anything wrong with his words. Instead, they felt that everything should be like this. "Now, I will give you new orders. First, bury Alexandra properly and give her a decent funeral. Second, go to the following locations. Take the things inside to the safe house and wait for my next instructions." The specific locations are: these places are all secret places where dragon bones are hidden. To be precise, they are the secret places where the dragon bones of Alexandra and Botu are hidden. Salander and Madame Gao and others, of course, also have their own hidden places. Third, contact all the ninjas outside. Tell them that I'm the new master of the hand and have them go to the safe house together to wait for my next instructions. If anyone objects, kill them on the spot. After saying this, he pointed to a hand ninja in front of him and said, "What's your name?" "Sir, my name is." As soon as the hand ninja started to speak, Roger interrupted him. "Your name is Jai. From now on, you are their leader. When I'm not around, you will be responsible for managing them. Okay, that's all for now, let's act." When he finished speaking, the hand ninjas who had been eager to eat him alive before bowed to him respectfully. Then, they acted quickly according to his instructions. It feels different to have subordinates. In one word, cool. Although the hand is now on the blacklist of SHIELD and major official agencies, and is also besieged by SHIELD, this is not a problem for Roger. He has never considered cooperating with SHIELD, let alone becoming a running dog of SHIELD. Hechu. Not long after, the warehouse that originally gathered a large number of hand ninjas became empty. To be precise, except for him, everyone left. Burying Alexandra, moving the dragon bones, contacting other ninjas. Except for burying Alexandra, which was relatively easy, the other 2 tasks were difficult. When he was the only one left in the entire warehouse, he came to the body of Botu and took out the ring that belonged to Botu. After wiping the rings that were already stained with a lot of blood on Botu's white shirt, he returned to the office of the warehouse and took out all the surveillance hard drives. Then, he used silk thread to cut them into a completely unrecoverable state of shreds. After doing all this, he whistled and left the warehouse. Queens, the top floor of the Forest Community Building. After completing the system's bounty task and taking the half-crippled hand as his own, he first had a lunch for 7 people at a Chinese restaurant outside, and then returned to the building with satisfaction. In the first week of the journey, he completed 2 bounty missions, obtained 35 million berries, and raised the bounty to 5 million berries. More importantly, during this week, he upgraded the main fruit, the line fruit, to LV2, and successfully obtained the first secondary fruit, the door fruit. Of course, the armament haki that cost him 28 million berries was indispensable. Double fruits plus armament haki. He can already imagine a bright future waving at him again. No, I feel a little bloated. Put my hands on my waist for a while. After calming down his somewhat bloated mentality, he began to think about what to do next. In terms of savings, he now has several small goals in hand, and he doesn't need to worry about it in the short term. In terms of power, he has a half-disabled hand that is being attacked by SHIELD. In terms of companions, he doesn't seem to have any friends now. Although Gwen is the ex-girlfriend of the original owner of the identity, it is all the credit of the original owner of the identity and has nothing to do with him. The pony from Hong Kong Island. This is a young man with a bit of chivalry, but he only met him once. Take your time, and who says you must have a companion to develop better? The world's greatest swordsman, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, Hawky Joracle Mahawk likes to wander the sea alone. Thinking of this, he suddenly remembered the second generation of Kitetsu in them all 20 million berries. To buy a large fast sword 21 work. This is a bit wasteful, no matter how you look at it. However, this does not mean that he does not want a sword of his own. Since it is too wasteful to buy it from them all, then make one yourself. Everything can be made. All knives can become black knives. This is what Hawky Joracle Mahawk said in person. In this case, Roger came to the study room that he rarely came to, picked up a piece of white paper and quickly drew on the desk. A few minutes later, a knife that was exactly the same as the Supreme Large Fast Sword 12 work knight appeared on the paper. P.S. Thank you for the reward from. Thank you for your support a new month. Continue to ask for asterisk. Today is April Fool's Day. You shouldn't tell me that you will definitely do it next time. Chapter 50 Informant. In terms of manufacturing technology, the manufacturing technology of this world is only higher than that of the pirate world. Although this world does not have the great division of the Supreme Greatsword 12 works or the Greatsword 21 works, this does not affect the quality of weapons in this world. If some special metals such as vibranium or adamantium alloy are obtained, the weapons made may not be worse than weapons such as the Supreme Greatsword 12 works. As for refining it into a black sword, it depends on how far his armed color domineering can be cultivated. After drawing Hawk's Supreme Greatsword 12 works Black Sword Knight, he wrote down the blade data one by one according to his own guesses. Of course, these data may not be very accurate, but they will not affect the use. After drawing the Black Sword Knight, he thought for a few seconds, and also drew the cross knife hanging around Hawky Mahawk's neck, and also wrote down the data. Next, as long as you find a reliable custom knife manufacturer or knife maker, you can make these 2 knives. At the beginning, Roger planned to place orders directly on the websites of those custom knife manufacturers. But just when he was about to upload the pictures and data, he stopped. He thought of a better way. The Hand. As a ninja killer group, the Hand must have its own weapons manufacturing workshop. Although the Hand can also outsource the production of these weapons to other manufacturers, this is too inconsistent with the style of the Hand. After thinking of this, he planned to hand over the production of the Black Knife Knight and the Cross Knife to the Hand. But not now, but after a while. The Hand is now no different from a street rat. It is obviously not a good time to ask them to make weapons at this time. After putting away the design drawings of the Black Knife Knight and the Cross Knife, he turned on the computer and looked at the news of SHIELD today. Unsurprisingly, the news of SHIELD's massive attack on the Hand headquarters building has become a hot topic on the internet today. Now you can see related reports on any news website. In these news reports, Roger even saw his own figure. It was a scene of him wearing wire armor and swinging out of the Hand building and being chased by the Quinjet. Although he appeared in the video for a short time, only a few seconds, it still attracted people's attention. At the press conference held by S.H.I.E.L.D., many reporters asked about his identity in public. However, these questions were blocked by S.H.I.E.L.D. on the grounds of confidentiality. In addition to the news reports of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s attack on the hand building, S.H.I.E.L.D. also generously provided action footage of their attack on several other bases of the hand. These action videos, edited like Hollywood action blockbusters, helped S.H.I.E.L.D. regain a lot of public support. After roughly browsing these news reports, Roger turned off the computer. S.H.I.E.L.D. proved its strength with actual actions, recovered Captain America's shield, and dealt a serious blow to the notorious hand. Although S.H.I.E.L.D. has always emphasized that there are still many remnants of the hand outside, this does not affect these news media using the title "The Hand is completely destroyed." While the media outside were frantically reporting on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s action, an office in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s New York branch had a completely different scene. Attacking the hand headquarters building and wiping out all the ninjas inside. This was nothing to S.H.I.E.L.D. Although they paid a certain price, it did not affect the final outcome. However, the people in the office were not happy at all. Still no news about the informant? Captain America Rogers asked first. Informant, this is a code name S.H.I.E.L.D. just gave Roger. A code name that is not cool at all. No, we completely lost his trace after he entered the sewer. But judging from the time of Botu's death, he should have rushed over immediately after leaving the building. Black Widow Natasha said calmly. From the current intelligence, everything he did was to kill the 5 fingers of the guild. Mrs. Gao, Sawanda, and Miramasa were all killed by him personally. The wound on Botu should have been left by him. As for Alexandra, we haven't found any trace of her yet. The person who spoke was not Black Widow, but a tall, blonde-haired female S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Mockingbird Barbara Morse. Aren't there any surveillance cameras in the dock and warehouse? Captain America Rogers asked in confusion. Yes. But the surveillance hard drives were destroyed, and the technical department couldn't restore them. Mockingbird Barbara continued. How is the autopsy report of Cylinder and others going? Captain America asked again. It's still going on. The technical department is also analyzing some of the items on them, and no valuable information has been found yet. The atmosphere in the office became silent again. Leave the whereabouts of the informant to me. Just when Captain America and others didn't speak, a middle-aged man with a particularly high hairline said, Coulson, don't you have a mission in Mexico? Asked Barbara Mockingbird. I asked May to lead the team in Mexico. She is a tough guy, so there won't be any problems. Coulson replied with a smile, looking confident. Since you are confident, I'll leave this matter to you. After thinking for a few seconds, Captain America Rogers said to Coulson, who looked harmless, no problem, I recently collected another set of out-of-print cards. Although the corners are a little wrinkled, they are still well preserved. If I find this informant, you have to sign this set of cards. Coulson agreed immediately and made a small request of his own. Captain America Rogers knew that Coulson was his fan shortly after he was unfrozen. In fact, he had signed his name on many of Coulson's cards. Okay, as long as you can find this informant. Roger didn't know that S.H.I.E.L.D. had given him a code name of informant that was not cool at all. Now he is conducting his first armament hacking training in the training room. He originally wanted to practice the Tremor Fruit first, but after discovering that his fists had a defense and attack power beyond his imagination, after hardening with armament hacking, he changed his mind. The Tremor Fruit is not suitable for frontal combat. For the improvement of combat power, armament hacking is obviously more effective. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.